Still haven't made that one that auto cuts for you.
Yeah, and I redid the intro video for when I'm doing my things or if I'm doing gameplay, and I also
Mhm.
made an intro video for when I'm doing Zero to Hero.
Which
Uh,
is great. I saw
What?
that one.
Did
yeah,
we just become best friends?
I had some fun with that. Hey, Blizzrad, my mod. Thank goodness you are here,
Yeah.
and thank you so much for renewing the renewing the sub. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope things are going well down under. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Ah, yeah,
We're here to crush your pessimism.
yeah. Well, like there are certain things on the list that I'm miffed about, but there are a lot of things where I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I wasn't expecting that at all, or okay, yeah, that isn't coming this year, but like it looks like they're targeting a 4.1, or maybe even it's going to be 4.0 now that 4.0 is late. Hey, Bear Katner, am I saying that right? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Oh, my camera's off. Tilt that up a little bit. There we go.
Or we can
Dell, hey, what's going on?
also have like auto white balance, so it went blue when you touched it.
Oh yeah. Well, and it probably yeah. Yeah, if I block the light out. Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny.
Is this the cooked citizen, slow citizen, doom citizen therapy?
Yes.
Oh gosh, yeah. God,
Like
the
I for one really like how Benoit opens CitizenCon. Relentless optimism.
mm-hmm.
And as people who aren't subscribed to the optimism way of thinking don't understand, optimism doesn't mean doesn't not able to see bad. It means being able to take the bad and still be optimistic and
Yep.
still look at the future in a positive light. And that's what I do with Star Citizen. It's just, hey, they missed this thing. It just means it's farther down the road. Or this thing had a problem. They just need to bug fix it. It's okay. And we move on.
Yeah. Not lingering on it like, I don't know, people do on master modes. Oh my god.
It's not even master modes.
Oh, I
Like
know, but
watch
it's
anyone
just
who
this the thing where people are just constantly. It's like, let it go.
and
It
like watch anybody who actually like sit down and talks about the whatever problems they see or talk about problem like an interview like Tomato's interview with AV1. That was a real hard video to watch. Um,
He-Man and the master modes of the.
um, but it's not Massimo's they're upset with. They're upset with the flight characteristic or flight model balance. What do you want to call it? Out flight tuning. They're upset at the flight tuning. They're not upset at master modes. They're not upset at engineering. They're upset at flight performance tuning. And they keep
Yeah.
calling it master modes. Like that's not what you're upset about, bud. It's not.
Well, some people are upset about the oh, I can't have my shields on, blah blah blah, and go a million miles an hour, and it's like,
I haven't seen that argument since it came out, so.
oh, it's it. I'm in the Facebook groups, and so I'm really only
Oh,
in there
okay.
to
I'm
see
not
if
attached to that part.
it's I hate it because it's not generally there's not I don't get much new information out of it, but it's one of those
There's no
things where
constructive anything
I
in
put my
there.
feelers out in as many places as possible, so I catch any information,
That's why it's
and
become buzzword. Yep. Yep.
yeah, the buzzword for
Nuance in
change.
this
Yep,
case.
yeah. Now, other than that, Facebook for me is mostly professional, just because so much of the FOMED community, free open access to medical education um, community, is on Facebook and shares stuff content via Facebook, and
The only
keep up
thing
with
I use
family.
Facebook for is the store because apparently around here, Craigslist didn't take hold, so they're on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh,
So it's
and
just
Craigslist
local stuff.
is nothing but
Nope.
rape and drugs at this point. It's yeah. Hey, socially confused. How's it going? Good to see you this evening. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, so welcome everybody to the Pathfinders podcast. Kitty. This is episode 74, and we are the Pathfinders, and we are charting the way through all the nebulous information surrounding Star Citizen Squadron 42 and their development. I am Tree0311 here with my partner in crime,
Hello, everyone. I am Nazeris.
and yeah, we've got a good show this evening. Got some good information, some juicy tidbits that you might have missed, and a lot of context, which is good. Um, yeah.
Because if we're going to be pessimists, gosh darn it, we'll show the receipts.
Yes. Yep. All about the receipts. Citations, source up or shut up. So this evening, and we'll get started here in a few minutes, but this evening we're going to take a look at the September 18th Roadmap Roundup and the changes on that. We're going to take a look at the latest server meshing development news and updates. And make sure that everybody's up to speed on all of those and the most recent commentary, because there's a lot of really good information that was put out very recently. And then we have a Spectrum Pulse to top off the evening called Progress on Promises. Heavy on the quotes. Where we're going to look at what was actually said by Chris Roberts at CitizenCon last year in order to provide adequate context surrounding that conversation, as well as to set more reasonable expectations. And I know we talked about this when it first came out, but then since the year has gone on, everybody's like, "But he said," and it's like, well, actually, you know. So we're going to take a look at the what's made it in, what's on its way, what should we have been expecting and what not, and what things are on the radar and you should be excited about because they're cruising through development, and we might see sooner rather than later, or might get another update on at CitizenCon. So before we launch into that, Naz, how you doing, buddy?
Much better than like if we had done anything the past 2 weeks. I finally now have job, and that has been good to finally have. After basically doing the math, I would have been minus money end of November, or somewhere in November. Basically after initial bills of the month were paid in November, I would have been out. But now I finally have a job. I start tomorrow, so that's good, and I'm finally like it's given me the kick to, because I when I started not being employed after the store I worked at completely just packed up and left. I had this like wave of determinism to like fix all of my life, like to exercise more, to like have goals of like finally moving out and basically being the person I actually want to be in the future. As the couple months wore on, I kind of lost that and sunk into this very like black hole of just nothing's moving because nothing was moving. Like I still was like working on little bits, but it got depressing after about 2 months being unemployed. And getting the job has really kicked me into this back up to that point, but even further. Now that I can now have a job, I have the ability to make the money to make the things happen that I still need money to make happen. So I'm exercising almost every day, assuming I'm not in terrible pain, because I'm just bad at exercising and being in shape. I still have to work on food though. Food's a hard one, mostly because I like food, and I like food, and I'm terrible at remembering to eat. So I've had today, as far as all of food I've ever eaten today, I've had some candy airhead things. I've had 6 nuggets and like 8 pizza rolls.
Oh my, you need some noodles.
I
Get that man some nudes. And Naz survived the hurricane.
And that's right, the hurricane. So we are on the most eastern part of North Carolina. Like we are way north and way east in North Carolina. And so it was supposed to come up and lean our direction. We're supposed to get way worse. It came up to the top of Georgia and went westward.
Yeah.
So we got one day of good rain. because I
Kentucky and
love
Tennessee
rain.
got hammered.
Yeah,
Man,
and like there are some dead there. It was not good, but it where I'm at, it was just fine. It pains me to hear, like especially for hurricanes, because like you see them coming from tons of miles away. We know how to protect against them, and still like there are some, whether it's through the fault of the people or through the fault of the states or cities not having proper evacuation plans, rescue plans, whatever, like people end up dying. It's terrible because like it's not like a tornado where it's just like, oh, there's a tornado outside now. Like we know these things are coming. We
I
have
can't
ways
wait
of
for
preventing this.
that kind of weather in Star Citizen. I want somebody to walk. I want to be like, hey, you know what? We should probably leave. And like, you and your crew, like the three of you, go into the airlock and you cycle the airlock, and the first person out the door just takes one step and gets sucked off into a tornado. You know, yeah. This is why I'm in California. I don't want to see my doom coming. But
No, you're supposed to live in Yellowstone, so you're at the epicenter where it explodes.
yeah, yeah. I'm only 5.5 hours away. Not even that. It's more like 5 hours, and that's as a
Apparently,
crow
it's
flies. It's a
not
lot
going to
closer.
explode.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a new report that says it's not supposed to explode. It won't
If
explode
as
like
long
they.
if it doesn't, I would be thrilled.
There's a
Um,
stupid bug in here. It's driving me crazy.
so yeah. So I have good news, and Naz and I were talking about this before the stream started. For the third night in a row, last night, the twins slept through the night. So I have three children under 3 who are sleeping through the night. Now, it may be a fluke that will only last for a while because there's these things that babies go through called developmental leaps, and the one that comes at the 4 month mark is where babies often go through a sleep regression and forget everything that you've taught them about sleeping. So we'll see how long this lasts, but we've been enjoying it. Um, but even before that, we had it down to where they were generally, and my wife and I sleep in shifts. She'll go upstairs at like 8 o'clock and go to bed, 8 9 o'clock, and then come back downstairs at 3 o'clock, and then I'll go upstairs and sleep from 3 o'clock until whenever I need to wake up. Um, and the babies would generally wake up, between 1 and 3. And so I would wake up and feed them, and then I just wait for my wife to come downstairs, and then I'd go back upstairs and go to bed. And so I would generally get like 3 4 hours of sleep before they'd wake up, and then I'd go get another 3 4 hours of sleep, which is not great, but it's doable, because they would then wake up again, between 4 and 6 o'clock for my wife. And now they're sleeping through the night, and it's like, well, and before that they were even only waking up once in the middle of the night. So I'm able to, whereas I was going to bed at like 8 o'clock, 8 9 o'clock, so I could get enough sleep. I wasn't able to stay up after putting the kids bed to play video games or have any time to myself, because I knew that if I did that, then I'd be sabotaging myself and I'd get like 4 hours of broken sleep, and I can't function like that. Not anymore. Not at 40 years old and doing what I do. Um, but now that they're sleeping, I'm like, sweet. I can stay up for 3 hours and stream and play Star Citizen, or, you know, um, play Space Marine 2. So like I streamed the other night, and I did um, Zero to Hero stream. Got that going again. I'm going to stream Zero to Hero again tomorrow night. I made a little. My Zero to Hero character has a Cutter Rambler, so I made a video intro video for the stream of the Cutter Rambler with a song that I bought the rights to, and everything. So I was pretty proud of that. So if you're interested in Zero to Hero gameplay, I'm going to be doing that tomorrow night, same time, right here, same channel. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And my Zero to Hero, like I just do odd jobs, so investigation missions, delivery, delivery missions, those sorts of things. And my cutter is called the Loot Goblin. If you haven't seen it, here I'm gonna pull up the.
Oh, Danger Hobo's here. Hello.
Hey, Danger Hobo, good to see you.
It's a long one show. Actually, it's not a lot of reading today. I mean, I'm probably gonna end up having to read the report, the not report, the Roadmap Roundup, but like, it's not a lot of reading today. Today is mostly summarizing the last year of development really quickly.
Oh, we need to switch screens. That's why that isn't showing.
Ah,
So
I
this
get
is the logo I've made for my Loot Goblin. I found this cool font and everything, so I'm pretty pleased with it. But yeah, basically, I do odd jobs and I take everything that isn't nailed down that is of some value while I'm doing it, and make a little bit of money and have fun. And I listen to blues and sort of blues music, blues rock music while I'm doing it. So I had a good soundtrack. It was fun. We'll be doing more of that tomorrow, and then I'm hoping that I can get some expeditions up and running again. It will just depend on what days off I have and stuff, and getting people together, because that's the problem. Is like during the weekends is family time, except for in the evening. And so it's not like I can be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go play, this afternoon. It's like, no, I've got stuff to do with the kids and chores. So yeah. But anyway, let's get going into the show. And first things first, we're gonna start with the Roadmap Roundup for September 18th, 2024. Nazeris, I'm gonna let you get us started. I forgot to fill up my water. I'll be right back.
all right.
And I can hear you, so if you talk shit, I still have my headphones on.
But you can't do anything about it. Hey. Ba-dum-bum. Make sure I just have everything open where it's supposed to be. All right, Roadmap Roundup then. So, I actually have the Spectrum one pulled up, which is not the one I normally read. Anyway, so it's the same stuff. Just they posted twice for some weird reason. As we are to do, we do like to read the headers when we read directly from Star Citizen or CIG documents, Star Citizen documents, and that's mostly to convey the exact purpose of the documents we are reading. So, the roundup is as follows. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Every 2 weeks, we accompany the roadmap update with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision making that led to any changes. This is a part of an effort to make our communication more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who help make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into this week's Roadmap Roundup. There are 4 notable changes, and those notable changes for September 18th, 2024 are the following. The following cards have been moved into Alpha 324 column, targeting a 324X release, and we now know them all as, well, the 3 new ones as 3242, and one of them as already released, that being the Atlas. So, the first 2 are different caves. So we have Acidic Cave, implementing the Acidic Cave archetype, coming both to Pyro and the standard system, adorned with luminous pools of water and dramatic stalactites and stalagmites. These caves provide a captivating setting for exploration, FPS missions, missing person missions, and more. Rocky Cave similarly are implementing the rock cave type, coming both to Pyro and Stanton system. Illuminated by biomass and mushrooms, these caves provide a unique atmosphere for exploration, FPS missions, missing persons missions, and more. So the rock cave, just as a note, was confirmed to be in addition to the caves we have currently. The rock caves and the caves we have now are technically the same type. They're just not going back and removing the old ones and replacing them with the new rock style, or the new rock style. So for now, we're gonna have 2 different rock caves. I would imagine eventually.
They did say
when
they are
do,
going to replace the old ones
eventually
with the new ones. Yeah, they just haven't done that yet.
Okay. And then the last thing that is new is the MFD rework and new displays, rebuilding the multifunction displays in building blocks, including new designs, functionality, and customization options. This update also includes a select number of updated ship HUDs, giving a greater visibility as well as a manufacturer-based visual overhaul. And for some reason, RSI is not one of them.
Yeah, I did think that was really weird.
They're making the suits. Why did they make? It's fine. We're probably getting more types in 4.0 or at least 4.1, because like they said, it's simply a swap logo and color palette at the base. So it's pretty easy for them now to go on and just make the other manufacturers. These are probably just the ones that they've had and had validated. So we're getting, I believe it's Anvil, Drake, um, Aegis.
Aegis and Argo. Is it Argo?
Does Argo have their own? I didn't know if Argo had their own. I know the Aegis, Anvil, and Drake are all getting theirs. Search confused said it's Argo as well. They put in Argo and didn't put in whatever. Anyway, the last one on the list is
Orange
the
base
Argo
lumps are the best
Atlas.
ships. So
they are indeed. I am in the process again of building the bulk, so I know how everyone loves Argo ships. So the last one in here is the Argo Atlas, building, balancing, and implementing the Argo power suit, the Atlas, or Argo's power suit, the Atlas into the game. Some people like saying ATLS and not Atlas, but it's Atlas. It's a great little vehicle. I cannot wait till people can buy it in game.
yep.
It's stupid useful.
Oh, and oh gosh. Mm. Um, if you don't like leaks, cover your ears. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to cover your ears if you don't like
What's
leaks.
it about? Because I might like it, I might not. I don't know. I'm working on
It's
my what I care
regarding
about.
the Atlas tractor beam.
Okay, yeah, I'm good with this.
Yeah. So there is a leak for the
Like big soup.
actually here I'll pull it up. Give me 1 second.
We got more than 3 seconds. Did they say something or leak something about it being modular in some way?
Okay, so this was pulled from the 3.24.2 files, and it's related to the Gray Cat tractor beam, the one that we already have in game, the Sure Grip. So, backed by their certified soft touch guarantee, Gray Cat's Sure Grip tractor beam, which is the one we already have in game on ships, is a mainstay of its product catalog thanks to its dependable range and control. This Q model includes a special quick placement mode to assist with the transfer of cargo, aka the mode that the Atlas has. All right, earmuffs
Ah.
off. If you know, if you don't like leaks, you can take your earmuffs off. Um, so it looks like they are already retrofitting, and whether that means that this will be in 3.24.2 or not, we don't know. But the description was changed. So keep that in mind. Um, but they said it's a Q model, which means that currently um, there's like a base model without it, and then there's a Q model which has an additional mode. So you can have, it sounds like both modes is the way I'm reading it. I could be wrong.
I would love if it was the Q model was the quick place. So you could either buy, like in game, you could either buy a non-Q or a Q model of any tractor beam,
Mm-hmm.
giving
Well, I think
you that kind of choice.
I think the way it reads is it sounds like to me that the Q model has a mode that includes that, and I don't know if it's like a swappable mode or it
Well,
says it includes, so like you pick one or the
yeah,
other. But
if it is a mode,
it
it makes the non-Q irrelevant because one just comes with two modes that you could do the old mode.
yeah,
So
and yeah, it's a
it just depends on how they want to really implement the component
yeah.
itself.
I would be fine with replacing all of them with the tractor beam and give it two modes.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be fine.
You know,
Like it's
don't
not hurting
pick and
anything.
choose. You know, let everybody have the same tractor beams, but give it two modes. Because sometimes
Yeah.
you do want that fine placement
Mm-hmm.
versus the cargo yeeting. Because the cargo
Yeah.
yeeting is not good for placing components or weapons and stuff. Socially confused. The Zeus has the Gray Cat one on it, but it's just like a weapon. Um, you'll be able to swap it out. The question is, um, when Misk is supposed to have their own tractor beams that infuse Xeon tech or something like that. They mentioned that in the Expanse concept release. So eventually, we're going to have different types of tractor beams with who knows what the differences will be? No idea. But that if you go back to the Expanse
I would bet the
concept
Xi'an one
page,
would have better maneuvering and less power.
yeah, some sort of it'll be like differentiating between weapons. Probably have the same modes, but
Yeah.
trade-offs in terms of like range or lifting capacity. Who knows? Yeah. So another thing, and again, if you don't like leaks, cover your ears. This isn't a big deal, but it's something that I'm super excited about, and I just have to shout it to the world. So cover your ears if you don't like leaks. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the new with 3.24.2, the acidic caves, the rock cave, the new rock caves, and the sand caves, all the caves tier 2 that we have their interior maps, and they are on the star map. So you can see them from the star map, zoom all the way in, and explore them and see them on the map just like you would the interior of any other location. So no more getting lost in caves starting 3.24.2. Hooray! Okay, you can remove your
And that's
maps.
not technically a leak because
It's an Evo.
Evo are allowed to talk about what
Yeah.
they're seeing in game.
Yeah.
So it's technically fair game.
Technically fair game. Yes.
The data mine stuff is still technically not fair game. So data mine stuff is still technically.
Yeah, because it's not like an announced feature and it isn't something that
Yeah.
they can see in game yet.
Correct.
That's the thing is I've been waiting to see if somebody can try out the tractor beam to see if it does the thing.
Also, did you see the Spheric leak? Is it when
I
you
did.
open the door?
No, it's the mapping room thing. It works
Oh, very nice.
to an extent, but it does like the map is like the star map and stuff, and
Nice.
so
Can you zoom
yeah.
out to see Pyro?
I don't know how much functionality it has. I just know that like it does show the things around the ship and stuff.
Eventually, one of us will have to become Evo.
Yeah,
I wish
that's
they would
probably
just
not
put.
going to happen for me.
I wish they would just put a
I
price
would
point
love
on it
to.
so I could just go buy it. Like I will do the work. I swear. Just give me a chance.
All right, I am going to, because it makes it easier for me to find it later when I'm editing to put it up on YouTube. I'm going to switch screens, and then that's it for the Roadmap Roundup for November or September 18th, 2024, and talk about a few relevant leaks. And we'll get started here in just a second with the updates on server meshing. And let me minimize that and open up this. Okay, and switch.
I heard there are Corsair changes inbound. There are every ship changes inbound. There is no ship that is safe. Everything will change. Until 1.0, literally everything is on the table.
Yeah, Evo's not as glorious as you might think. No, it is definitely not glorious.
No,
but
it's
Evo
as
is what
close
I
as
did in my 20s.
possible. Yeah, as close as possible you can get to in-house QA, and
Not
you can
complete.
definitely put that crap on a resume, like absolutely.
Oh yeah, I
But
used to
no,
keep track. I had a
it's
spreadsheet of all my character names and stuff that I used from all the games that I alpha and beta tested. So that way, if I applied for an alpha or a beta test, I could send them this. And it's like, hey, if you guys want to look it up, here's my resume. Please let me
I forget what alpha I
alpha
got
test
into
your game.
because of that.
Yeah.
I did get into an alpha because I'm like, hey, I beta test this, and this. They're like, hey, those are actually like some of those are actually pretty good to like beta test. So like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would
Yeah, that
love to
was
be Evo, and I'd love to get in there and be able to actually, like, because it's a hands-on way I can actually affect the speed of the game. The more I test and the more rigorous I can test it, the faster they can get the data they need to faster fix the bugs.
Yeah, it's just it was a fun hobby for me. It was something that I enjoyed doing when I was younger, much younger and poor. And it's like, okay, well, I can play video games without paying for them. And there's a good number of times where I did get paid to do it. Not like it was like a lump sum, but like it was a fun hobby, and I would love to do it again. But especially for Star Citizen, but it is time consuming, and I don't got that kind of time anymore. Not even close.
You bought it for the pilot firepower, but it should not buy a ship for the current game. Exactly.
You should never buy a multi-crew ship for the pilot firepower. 100%. Buying a multi-crew ship for the pilot firepower is silly.
If this is about the Corsair having like 2 bomb guns now, or anyway, either way, I was in the Corsair recently with some org mates doing Blockade Runner. It is terrible. We did maybe 30 minutes in the Corsair before we switched to what did we switch to that had just infinitely better? I think we switched to the Caterpillar. It wasn't the flight characteristics. The view lines and the maneuverability of the turrets were just, because so much of the firepower was the pilot had to focus those guns on targets. We could not waste the firepower at the nose and just rely on the 2 turrets on the side. So while he was trying to actually keep them in target, the turrets just basically didn't have anything to shoot at. And then we're always being whacked off target because their scope, their bubble of influence is so small and very hard to maneuver around, because you can't really point straight backwards, and you can point mostly forward but not quite forward. And just kind of trying to maneuver it onto your target was horrible. Plus you have the giant ship next to you that you can't shoot anywhere near. So like the turret experience in the Corsair in the current patch is just terrible. Hopefully with the, I assume that's what the two of the guns are not being pilot controlled. I assume hopefully that this will be negated at least a little bit, that the pilot now can not use the pilot controlled guns and focus on getting the turrets on target, because that's what you're supposed to do in a turret based ship. You're supposed to be focusing on flying, getting the spheres of influence of your turrets where they need to be. Rant over.
No, but like it makes sense, and it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it has pilot controlled firepower, but you're flying a multi-crew ship, and if you're the pilot and you're trying to manage the ship and tell other people what to do, you're going to get task saturated. And you have to realize that, if you're trying to do bounties in your Corsair, the game's going to come to a point where you're not going to be able to do, a lot, like, unless you're doing bounties against other big slow ships, and you have escorts, because you're going to be vulnerable as hell to fighters. Like if you're going up against one big slow ship, in your Corsair, but he has fighter escorts, they're going to chew you apart. And like it just flying it's one of those things where people want to fly it solo, and then they're mad that they can't do things solo. And it's like, well, you need to have turret gunners, and you need to have somebody running around putting out fires, and you have to realize that you probably need escorts as well. Like the turrets are just a deterrent, for fighters. Like any good fighter pilot, isn't going to get schwacked by the turrets on a Corsair. It's a little bit of a deterrent, but if there's more than 2 of them, you're hosed. You can't just go it alone in your Corsair, just you. And even if you only have like 1 or 2 turret gunners, you're really going to have a hard time if there's an equal number of people in other ships. So the server meshing news, and this is, we're going to catch it. Yeah, we're going to catch everybody up if you haven't been paying attention. Because there is some news over the last few weeks a lot of people have been talking about, but we're going to sort of recap and then talk about the big information dump. So server meshing playtest round 3. was on September 12th. A little over 2 weeks ago. And they say round 3 because there were 2 playtests in the spring. There was an Evo one, and then there was, right? There's an Evo one, and then there was an open one, correct? Or were there 2 open
Yes,
ones and then an Evo one before that? I'm trying to remember now.
there was at least one of each.
Yeah. I
I
want to
don't
say
remember
there was an
exactly.
Evo and then open one, or maybe there was an Evo and then 2 open ones. Either way, this was the first one since the spring, um, and so what they did is they started it up, and this is with the new uh, replication message queue. So this is, and we're going to read more about this soon, but this is the first test with the new RMQ replacing the NMQ, and RMQ was developed during 323 and released during testing during the 324 testing cycle, and it has been live and running on all 324 servers for a bit now. And now we're
And it worked.
validating it. Yeah, and it works, in live, and now they're validating it in a server mesh environment. And so this first playtest, what they did is they started out with a single DGS and 100 players, and then they shut it down and relaunched because, again, this is a static configuration. They can't change the configuration on the fly. So they have to shut down these shards and then relaunch the shards in a new configuration. And so they went from 1 DGS and 100 players, like we have in live, to it was 3 DGSs and 5 players, or 5 players, 500 players, DGS being dedicated game servers. And they kept that up for a little while. And then they shut it down and went to 6 DGSs and 1,000 players. And so I was in on this test, and the game launched, and it took the big one of the big glaring issues, and talked about this, was how long it took people to get in and to load in. The what it was called, the zoning in, was way delayed. Yeah, phew, good thing the Kraken doesn't have pilot weapons. It's going to be hard enough to try and solo someone else's Kraken with engineering. Yeah. Uh, uh, but yeah, so the first things first with this test. Naz, were you in on this one? I don't remember if you said this one or the other one.
I got in. I got in right after. I think it was that one. Right after they went up to 1,000 and then brought it back
Mm,
down
okay.
to, I think it was 600, and they were leaving that overnight. And like I missed it by like 30 minutes. I missed the
Yeah, so
1,000 player run.
I was in on this one all the way through. I was on for several hours, and so I got to experience everything. And even before they got to 1,000 players with the 500, and then just all of the configurations except for the 1 to 100, loading into the game took far longer. But then you had massive desync with huge latency spikes, um, to the point where you couldn't even see players moving. They just phase shifted into a different location if they did at all. And the interaction delay was measured in minutes. Like, you pressed the button on an elevator and you waited, and you waited, and you waited. But it didn't like, it was fairly stable. Like, I didn't have a crash until we got to the 1,000 player one, and then crash and launch back in a couple of times. But that was my experience, and that seemed to be very much the experience a lot of people had with that first test. If you go watch, there's been a bunch of videos on it. 10 Pound 42 has been doing a good job keeping up with the server meshing news, so go check out his videos. But that was the first test. So then the second test, round 4, was on the 19th. So 9 days ago. We didn't have a test this week, but we had one the week before. So they did the same thing with that test in terms of the configurations, and increasing them as they went. In order to, what they're doing is they were trying to figure out at what point were different things starting to feel stress, and were things starting to fail, and were things starting to develop a backlog, in terms of network performance, especially with the NMQ. So what the RMQ. And this one was way better. I wasn't able to play it, but I watched. I literally had two different people's streams up watching them play, and obviously it still wasn't like live, but the interaction delay was measured in seconds, and you saw players running around and moving around, and that was the watching players move around. Obviously you were desynced in, but you weren't so desynced that they were, you're watching them phase in and out. You just were probably like a second or two, behind watching them. So there's a massive improvement in the desync, and then the interaction delay was down to a couple seconds the majority of the time. Like it's still, there's still big issues at the 1,000 player level. It started to get really stressed and everything like that. But that's the point of going to 1,000 players, is they have
Yeah.
to stress it until it breaks.
Yeah, and I believe that's one of the messages. I don't know if that's one of the ones we're reading, but I do remember Benoit saying like the interaction delay that happened in that version, even though it looked exactly like the same problem, it was no longer capped because of NM versus RMQ. It was RMQ was performing better than the servers were.
Yeah.
That's how sturdy RMQ works. Is it outperformed the last 10 years of server development.
Yeah. Yeah. The fixes from this test to this test address the major issues that they found, but there were still other issues to address and optimizations to be made. But they did
Staying on
fix
chairs.
the big thing. Yep. The another thing that people have noticed is that the transit systems really did not like the server meshing environment. That's because the transit system refactor isn't in. That's in 4.0.
Shocking how
It's
that
not
works.
in the yeah. It's not in these builds. That's why
That's not part of which we're testing.
that's why the trams are messed up. That's why the elevators are a bit wonky. That's why currently R&R station elevators will teleport players back inside the station when attempting to use them. They're broken because the transit refactor isn't in. So if you watched a certain content creator's video and he talked about how these things aren't ready for server meshing, it's because that
No
thing that they're
duh.
building isn't
Like
in these builds, and they told us that. Like, we know.
so the server meshing we were testing was a 324 branch.
Yeah.
Like this is not a four. We're not on a 4.0. And I imagine we'll cover this a lot as we go through this topic. What they're trying to do with having so many and trying to hammer down server meshing is, one, they need concurrency, not focus. So they need to just get 1,000 players to hit several meshes at once. They need to figure out where the entire server mesh problem breaks. They can't do that in Evo because there's only, I think somebody said, somewhere around 600 to 800 of them.
Mm-hmm. And they
So
usually
they're
only get a
splitting up the
couple hundred
testing.
per test. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
And so
yeah.
they're splitting up the testing between the features of 4.0. That's Evo's job. Server meshing, that gets to be all of our job. So when they run these big tests, they're working on getting server meshing done and server meshing ready for live, basically ready for actually being implemented.
Mm-hmm.
The part where Evo gets to help with server meshing is how the features interact with server meshing, not necessarily getting the server mesh to just function basically. And so that will mean that when they get to test 4.0, they will not have to start testing how to run a server mesh.
Yep. The server meshing will have been validated. And
Yes.
yeah, obviously they'll probably still do some optimizations and fixes because they'll have to make things work within a server mesh environment. But that's the big thing, is the game, the way it's built, all the features have been built to work. Yeah, you don't have to change the way things work in a server with your with the relationship of these features. They don't change because they're still communicating with the replication layer, which communicates with the server. That relationship was established already in 3.2.3. The only thing that's changing is now things can be handed off from one server to another via the replication layer, and you can change entity authority. So people worrying about features breaking due to server meshing, think some things are going to break. There are things that are going to be a bit wonky, but it's not going to the the relationship of features to the game doesn't really change in a meshed environment. It's just allowing things, to spread the load, divide up the load, and then to be able to hand off things as they transition. Ships, players, the entities on ships and everything as they move around the universe. So I think the big thing that's going to be kind of hard for them to test, but then once we get to PTU is where they'll validate it, will be the mission system refactor and the transit refactor. So once those will be in 4.0, they'll be in Evo with server meshing once it's in there, and then once gets to PTU, hopefully they'll get the concurrency to really validate the transit system refactor. The mission system refactor is a really low, or is really not something that should be too much of an issue in that it isn't dependent on performance. Like it isn't something where your missions have to update on a regular basis.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they've also been working on the like switching over the modules to server meshing for like the last 2 years.
Night night, buddy. I'll see you in the morning. Sweet dreams. Yeah. So, and so that was the most recent playtest. They didn't have one. Let's see.
And they are planning one.
Pardon me.
I think you had the post. They are planning one for next week. So, within a week they already have enough fixes, and they did this I think 2 tests ago. Within a week or two they had enough fixes validated as internally validated that they're ready to test again and get more data and to see if those fixes worked. Like unfortunately, they are doing what Yogi wishes he could do with the flight model, which is iterate and just push patch after patch after patch, trying to get where they want it to be. Hopefully, hopefully Yogi gets like an Arena Commander mode or something where you can just like mess with all the controls, and just keep running it. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't play Arena Commander, so I wonder if he would even be able to get the concurrency he needs.
Yeah, the amount of data. So
Mm-hmm.
Balt CIG is Benoit, the chief technical officer. So he said, and this was, I think it was yesterday or the day before. So they were aiming to have all these last 2 tests have been on Thursdays. They're aiming to have another test this Thursday, but that was the message of the day earlier this week. But so he went into testing chat. Hey, all, still ironing out kinks in the meshing optimizations. They're just optimizing at this point. It works. Server meshing works. They're just optimizing and fine tuning it to get it to perform to the level of live. That's just like with the goals of PES. They wanted it to get to the point where, okay, it's performing as well as the live experience. So many side effects were found, so we have to delay our technical preview again and use a bit more time to test the changes. We'll go to another technical preview the moment those are validated. So they're not wasting any time. They're not going to wait until next Thursday. As soon as they're validated, they'll launch a test. Thanks all. Excited to see you on the next time it's up. And so someone asked, do you think this test will be dramatically better? Do you think this test will be dramatically different? And Benoit replied, hope for major speed improvements and lower latency. So they're taking a little bit extra time to make sure that they are getting the results they want from the optimizations that they're putting in. And they've made such a massive improvement with the fix that they put in the first time, and now they're just optimizing. So I'm very optimistic for this next test. And then the message of the day for yesterday said, the team is working on many new stability and performance improvements for the next tech preview test with the current goal of early next week for another meshing test. All the other messages of the day have said towards the end of this week, and they've been on Thursday. So keep that in mind. So let's go back to this. So on the 23rd, Benoit graced us with a giant update talking about everything that's been going on with the server meshing tests. So this is on the 23rd. So we're going to read through this, try to provide a little bit of clarity. If you guys have any questions in chat, hit us up. But this is really important. And again, if you want the links to any of these things, hop in my Discord. We can drop them off in the chat too if you want. But all these links will be in the show notes in the description when this goes up on YouTube on Monday. So, yeah. We did not Photoshop any of this. This is all real deal stuff.
Was that a question?
Yeah, we source up. So we don't have to shut up. Hey,
Have people been? Well, no, there was that one. There was actually a post that somebody took completely out of context. Like they snapped a bit of it, and it basically read like, 4.0 has been like canceled or something.
Oh yeah.
I forget.
Aetherdrift, we went through the September 18th Roadmap Roundup, and then we've been going through all the recent news on server meshing development and testing. And so this is the creme de la creme of that before we get into the Spectrum Pulse for the evening. So Naz, why don't you start us off?
You want to do the whole thing all at once?
Yeah, or like we talked about, you can start at the top and go through the
no.
first segment. And...
Yep.
Actually, no,
right.
You read the whole thing.
I'll just stop for your comments. It's fine. So let's top. Top says, "Hi everyone. I hope you're all having a great week so far. I wanted to take a moment to give you a brief, not really, update on server meshing and share a bit of recapitulation, action, post-action report for recent playtests, and a glimpse into our intent for the next phase. A quick recapitulation." Back in March 24, following meshing test A, we confirmed a critical design flaw in the network message queue and MQ used by game servers and hybrids. Hybrid service being the... no, I had it and then I just left.
The hybrid service is the replication layer, but it also is a few other services lumped in there. Like minor services.
Is Atlas part of it? Do you remember if Atlas is part of the hybrid?
No, I don't forget what else is within the hybrid, but eventually all the things in the hybrid will be separated out into individual services. That way, the
hybrid or each individual service could die on its own and be restarted.
Could die on its own, but also like they can fine tune them individually without fine tune the replication layer without impacting the other, and also separate them out so that they can scale individually instead of as a group. Maybe you don't need, every time you create a new, because that's the thing. And I think this is coming with dynamic server meshing, but maybe you need a new replicant, an individual replication layer, but you don't need another copy of the other 4 things, for each. As you subdivide an area.
Yep. What is it? GQ. Yeah. Said, no, don't be mistaken. This is brief. I know it's technically brief, but like, it's not Star Citizen average person brief. This is much more like definitely our kind of thing, not like, hey, server meshing went well kind of brief. Anyway, the NMQ is responsible for transmitting data over UDP. I'll give you 2 seconds. Something user datagram protocol. There we go. Sockets for both reliability and sockets for both reliable and unreliable, eventually consistent traffic. So basically, consistent traffic and inconsistent traffic, much like your hard drive is pretty good until you hit it with, I want a bit from there, bit from there, and bit from there. That's what RAM is for. So UDP sockets are for, and NMQ are both for reliable and unreliable traffic, as well as ensuring the security of data transmission. All game data, including serialized variables, entity properties, and remote method calls, pass through this message queue. The identified flaw caused issues when processing large amounts of binds and messages, leading to performance problems causing bottlenecks in the queue. Its usage of memory bandwidth was also problematic. To address this, the team went into focused development mode, aka, hey, we have to get this fixed yesterday, to create a replacement, the replication message queue, RMQ. The RMQ is designed to significantly improve bandwidth efficiency and maintain security for game servers, clients, and replicants. Most importantly, it aims to prevent major network bottlenecks that players would typically experience as prolonged interaction delays affecting multiple users simultaneously. As previous shards, we introduced
As
as previously.
previously shared.
Oh, sure, yeah, I can read. I swear. As previously shared, we introduced the first version of RMQ in early 324 releases as a canary on select shards. So basically, they had some with NMQ, some with RMQ. They were basically waiting to see which one broke first, and uh, if when the NMQ went bad, did the RMQ go bad, or vice versa? And can the RMQ not outlast, but the NMQ had problems with old servers because as entities piled up, as you didn't throw your balls in the trash can, the NMQ would just get inundated and bottleneck these repeated messages that it had to send, and uh they were having this duality kind of server base with NMQ and RMQ to see if the aging problem was still there. Uh, Now it's fully deployed across all 3.241 shards. We're closely monitoring RMQ performance in relation to shard age, as I said, as we observed in 321 or 323.1 that as shards age, the number of bind messages increase significantly. Encouragingly, since implementing the RMQ, we've observed clear improvements in our metrics and performance captures. We're optimistic that these positive trends will persist as shards age, though we continue to monitor the situation closely. So
So
they're
what
still
the
gathering age data.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you put it really, really well, because that's a thing. What the message queue, what the replication message queue does is as it it creates things are put in queues, and so as information is sent to the replication layer, because the replication layer is the go between servers and clients, and like servers and the information from this is passed from here to there, and so as information it comes from one to the other, the replication layer and the replication message queue will decide, okay, I'm receiving these updates from the server on these things. These are high priority things, so I need to prioritize moving, forwarding them off to where they need to go, to clients. These updates, and these things are low priority things. They don't need to be updated as often. So I'm going to put these in a queue and I'll update them when there is time. There's a break in traffic, or at a certain point in time when it becomes, when this not updating would be, cause a noticeable problem.
And I
And
forget what the other thing was, but I remember that when Benoit did the Star Citizen Live, he talked about something was higher priority that, in my opinion, wasn't higher priority than hangars and getting ships out. And it was something like benign, and I forget what it was. And so basically, people taking, I think it was like elevators or something. Like people taking elevators would mean that it just basically locked up all the hangars, and no one
yeah,
could pull out a ship.
yep. Yeah, and that's and all these different requests and updates, because everything in the game gets updated on a uh, um, or sends updates based off of like a however many server ticks or something like that. And so as you add more and more entities into the game, like Naz was saying, more and more cruise bottles or Lux bottles and stuff like that, pile up. Well, each one of those things has to update. The server is whatever server that's in. has to track those things, and then it has to provide an update onto of the properties, for those entities to anyone who cares, whether you're in the area or something like that. And so you have all these things creating more and more updates that have to be sent and put into the queue. And so that would create other things to make it, to create backlogs for things that normally wouldn't be backlogged. That's why you see server performance degradation. That's why they created this replication message queue, to be able to handle far more data in parallel. They talk about parallelism later on, but be able to handle far more throughput in terms of passing, receiving information from servers and clients, because it not only comes from servers, but it comes from clients. As you're moving, you're sending updates to the replication layer. As you are changing things on your character or on your ship, or pulling things out of inventory, you're sending updates. As you shoot, you're sending updates. And so those things like are prioritized based off of, hey, is this a thing that needs to be updated quick, in like nanoseconds, or is this something that can be updated every 10 seconds or something like that? That's what the replication message queue does. Is it's basically it's a much bigger pipe for information, but it also handles that information far more efficiently, so that way you don't have these perceived bottlenecks.
Yeah.
That basically cause everything to just stop working. Pardon me. But if you didn't watch that ISC, right?
SEO.
What's that? SEL. Go back and watch it. It was so enlightening. I wish
Yeah, it's really
we had time
good.
to cover that, because in relation to this, watching that and then reading this makes this make that much more sense. But
Yeah.
it's really good information. The only thing I wish is that we had gotten that information sooner.
Yeah, and if you're into more gameplay than server tech, watch the one with Chad McKinney. Like those were probably like the best two SCLs of the year.
Yeah.
They were so good.
But this is why, like, if you were in these server meshing tests, once you got out of the landing zones, it performed flawlessly. Like, servers were running at 30 FPS. There was no, there was no like slowdowns or anything like that. Yeah, holy crap. So, moving on, server meshing tests with RMQ in place, along with other hybrid improvements. So, improving the replication layer, we have resumed server meshing tests using the current patch code base at 3.2.4. Our test objectives are to identify areas needing optimization to achieve low latency replication at scale with the actual game and real players. So, this is really important, because when they say with the actual game and real players, they've been running this and running server meshing tests in a simulated environment. Naz and I have talked about the Linux headless clients. I am
What do they
pretty
call it? They had a
confident.
name for it.
Yeah, they've called it headless clients. They've called it something else, but
They have a like it was like Star Tester or something stupid. They have a name for it where they can run hundreds of headless clients.
yeah, they can run hundreds of characters in a game, in a server, and you can make those characters that are just basically run by the game. They're do things to mimic player behavior, and really just it's getting them to log in and move around between entity zones and cross around between the server and stuff, and perform basic tasks that will allow it to test the basic functionality. So they've been testing. They talked about that in They talked about this in the. Here, hold on. I'm going to find it, because this is important.
And Eighth Draft, I don't know if you were here when we did discuss because they weren't testing elevators. The elevators and trams are part of the transit system, which is completely being ripped out and replaced for 4.0. And they knew it was going to break. That was not part of the test. It is going to break because they knew it was going to break, because it will break because server meshing. It
Here.
was just not part of the test. They already knew.
So the cloud test launcher.
Contest launch. That's the one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. The cloud test launcher was something they were developing in order to be able to test server meshing at the scale, because the big issue was they needed to be able to test it at a level of scale they couldn't do with PES, that they didn't get in PTU and they could only get until live. And so and the issue was the number of connections. They had so many people trying to connect that it overwhelmed their backend. Well, now they're able to make, simulate massive amounts of connections digitally in order to make sure their backend is robust enough, so that way the PS failures don't happen. And so they've been using that to test server meshing. And what we've just experienced, they did that with headless clients and the cloud test launcher beforehand. So the other objectives are to pinpoint game features that require adjustment for higher player counts, pinpoint game environments that need adjustments for higher player counts, landing zones.
Landing zones. I
Yes.
believe actually they did. I think that's actually in here somewhere. Oh, I'll just no. It was something to do with not enough hangers.
Yep. Well, I mean, we've got the Morph pointed out one thing, and it's kind of a really niche thing, but if you are in a massive party, and this is where org tools will come in, because then you won't have to create massive parties to group up. But launching with a party of 100 people and you're all in New Babbage, and then you go to use an elevator at the hangars, and you have to scroll through to find your hangar out of 100 other party members' personal hangars,
Yeah,
or whatever.
I imagine the only reason it's not its own button right now that shows up at the bottom is like a permanent button is just because it's new. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's just all they'll go around to.
Yep.
But like ArtCorp has plenty of hangars in the art, just like because there are 4 times as many hangars as you see in the game right now. Because if you look as you're on approach to Rikers Memorial, you stop at that one terminal, and there are 3 others. There's one more farther down the road, and there's 2 more on the other side of the highway.
Yeah, there are
Um,
plenty of places where
in
there are
Babbage, however,
doors. Yeah,
yeah,
Babbage is limited. Yep.
Babbage has like 5.
Yeah.
I
So
think the
there.
Babbage International or Intergalactic Spaceport will basically need a complete rework to make it function in the perceived what we now know as the future of Star System.
Yeah. And it's not that they need it's not like the physical hangar space because of the instancing. It's if you have more than a certain number of people in their personal hangars ready to take off, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
get put in a queue before they can get their instance hangar moved in from ethereal space to where the actual door is to leave. And you
Yep.
don't want that. And so they're going to need to have to add a lot more hangar space, and I think it's very doable just because they've got that giant mountainside to put additional terminal space in that you don't have to actually physicalize on. You don't have to put anything in it. It's just a place where they you know shift a hangar there, but you don't have to have anybody actually walking there on a real basis. You don't have to
Yeah.
change the main terminal. You just have to add more hangar space around it in the mountain. The other thing is um, the number of habs. There was a queue
Mm.
for people moving into
Ooh,
habs
that's
because
one thing
there's
I
only
did
like
love to see.
there's less than
Um,
100 habs.
mhm.
They did increase the number of habs a couple of years ago. It was a thing
Yeah,
that they
doubled it or
mentioned,
something.
but it's still like I think 60 or 80 or something like that habs. And if you have a bunch of people logging in at one time in one place, and so that's something where instancing might be used and could be used, but it's not going to be a problem for 4.0, because if the unless everybody launches in and spawns in the same place, and even then they can queue up and it's not that big of a deal. But with the player counts of 4.0 at a few hundred, not it's the chances of it being a problem are very low. But when we get to dynamic server meshing with much higher player counts and much larger events and stuff, even with players dispersing across an environment, um, it's going to be an issue, and it's something that they'll have to manage. They probably don't have to scale it up a ton, but they're going to need to scale it up. And because they're
Yeah.
just tabs, like, they can make it so that way
I
your
imagine also this is one of the things that building interiors will work on their way to solve. Not just like, oh, we just copy paste what we have. Like that is a fix, but it's not a um, solution, I guess. Like it will work, but it's definitely not what they want to do. Because they much rather have not copy paste everything. Like the stations, they're not copy paste. They're all unique iterations just using the same assets.
mm-hmm.
But all the habs are copy paste.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see where they go with habs and like apartments.
Mm-hmm.
You um, will they make it so that way you have a personal apartment at your starting location, and it's not at, um, oh gosh, Aspire Grand or what have you. That's just where you wake up if you crash there for the night, like you do at the habs at a
Yeah.
station. Because the station, they could definitely instance the station habs, and fake that 100%. There could be as many as they need at the station habs because
Wow.
you're not looking out a window.
Yeah, no, they definitely could, but like I'm pretty sure we actually have some difference of opinion here on like game space itself. Um, they've said they wanted like their plan for stations are so big you will need a tram inside of a station. They could definitely physicalize all the hangar space or all the hab space
They
they
could
need.
physicalize a lot more. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I
because
think, and I
we only
forget
use
who
a
mentioned
small
this.
fraction of the interior space
Yeah,
of space stations.
yeah, they
And
somebody else had this opinion too. They like instancing may only be a for now thing that we need, and it's a really good to have later, but they could fix the reason we need it. They
mhm.
could add as many doors as we need. They could add as many halves as we need. We have the space to build out. Like it's
Yeah,
just a
it's a
question of do we have the time to have the art done?
yep. And a combination of the two is probably the right way to go about it.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
like if you is it, I forget which station it is, where it's a donut, and you can see the hangar entrances around it, and the hangar
And there's a
entrances
lot
that
of
go
donuts.
around it, that they don't even fill up the whole circle, and
Hmm.
they only have like one or two of the prongs coming off the donut where the docking collars are, and there's more hangers on those. I think it's by Genie, yeah. And they can fill up the whole donut on the exterior, which is I think medium and large hangers. They haven't even done it yet. And on the inside of the donut is the small hangers, and they only have a handful of those. They can fill up the whole donut with those. And then they put in the spokes going out with the docking collars and even more hangers. And so, and that's literally just copy paste art. Copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. To add, like you said, a ton more. And then at that point, okay, is it still a problem? Do we still need this? Okay, well, sweet. We can fake it a little bit and just, no one's going to notice the difference.
Yep.
Um, let's see. So, uncover bugs related to server transition, server recovery, and other quirks introduced by the mesh setup. They had to fix quantum travel because every time you tried to quantum travel across a server boundary, it pulled you out, and then you had to start over again. Um, and that's part of what the new quantum travel experience and being physicalized also fixes. But we needed a fix in the meantime because we're not going to have the new quantum travel experience for a while. Confirm changes and improve the game experience at higher player counts from a networking point of view. So latency and making sure minimizing desync, making sure things aren't noticeable. if there are um, backlogs or bottlenecks and stuff, smoothing them over. Do as many optimizations as you can, but then is there a way to smooth over the experience so that way it isn't as noticeable? We are aiming for a rapid iteration cycle to test our corrections and optimizations. Okay, that's what they've already been doing with 2 tests, and now we're coming up on the 3rd. Ensuring progress at each step, which they have, without interference from other changes to the game. So that's why they're doing this in tech preview rather than in PTU where they're adding in new features and stuff. It's the same build every time. The only change is on the back end.
Yep.
Our goal is to conduct weekly tests. They missed that goal by a little bit, but it's because they are validating a whole bunch more optimizations to get really big performance games until it is time to rejoin the main development ranch for the 4.0 PTU waves. That includes Evocati. So once server meshing is performant to where, once they have reached these objectives with the server meshing tests, and and Naz and I were talking about things that are from a player point of view and things that are not going to get fixed for 4.0. If you have to go into a queue for a hab, you're going to have to go into a queue for a hab because it's probably only going to happen once when 4.0 drops, and after that, it's not going to be an issue. If you have to go into a queue,
most of the whole fixed art, building interior stuff, that's like pinned for 1.0. Not that way they won't get to it till 1.0, but like stuff they do need for 1.0, but just not really till then.
Yeah. If you have to go into a queue to launch your ship when 4.0 launches, sorry, they're not going to fix that issue between now and 4.0. I don't see it happening. But it's only going to happen when 4.0 launches, because after that everybody's going to disperse and you're not going to have, 100 people. And even then, the chances of everybody making it to the hangars at New Babbage in a short enough time to then launch their ships to where you're really having that much of a bottleneck, it's going to be pretty minimal. People filtering in and stuff. So it's really not going to be that big of a deal if it is at all. And even if it is, then it's going to be a very short-term headache that will probably not rear its head again until a new patch and we start over again. So he continues, we will only proceed to a tech preview test in each week if we have sufficient changes and improvements validated for all you to play. So they hadn't finished validating all their improvements this week. They're still working on that, so that's why they're aiming for a test early next week. Our tests should mostly follow a given pattern. First, start with a single server setup to validate no new problems. Expand to mid-size configuration, aka 3 servers, 500 players. Expand to a larger size configuration, aka 6 servers, 1,000 players. Reel back to a comfortable player cap and server amount based on the performance to leave the test open for a few hours so more players can experiment and we can capture data. So if you've seen where they dropped it back to, I think it was 3 servers and 350 people, and 3 servers and 500 people, that's about what we should expect for 4.0, because that's the comfort zone. When they go up here, it's because they're trying to break things, because if they find where it breaks, it makes it a lot easier to find the fixes that make everything better for even lower player counts. In these tests, missions will not be available as the mission system is currently being refactored to be server meshing compatible in 4.0. Several game systems, like social, are also being adjusted for server meshing, but those changes are not in the technical preview builds, which we aim to isolate for any ongoing development, bar networking code. Pardon me. The testing of these systems will resume when 4.0 hits PTU with server meshing enabled, like transit refactor. Cool. All right, Naz, back to you for the meshing test B.
Meshing test B. Post-action report. Meshing test B was conducted on September 12th and was the first test on RMQ. The results were disappointing and unexpected, but the previously identified bottleneck identified in test A was confirmed fixed. While interaction delay at scale had improved, allowing us to leave player testing at 4 servers, 350 player setup, the problem remained. The next performance bottleneck to be solved was identified. Observations. Zone in and out times were problematic, with a lot of players stuck loading when a rush of players occurred. Latency and interaction delays made the game unplayable at large player counts. Problem areas would also affect game server connections, making the problem worse. Silver lining, the original problem from NMQ was confirmed fixed, though through metrics and captures. The test was shut down early. And this is what I was saying earlier, that the RMQ outperformed the entire game. They found another problem with the game, with the server setup, that looked like the problem with NMQ, but it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was overall a success, in that it worked, but it didn't work, how they wanted it to. But they
It wasn't
fixed
the only thing.
yeah, they fixed the big problem with the NMQ. They validated RMQ, and after this, they're like, okay, we need to do a lot of optimizations. Aether369, the 1,000 player shards. I don't think that is the goal for 4.0 at all. Not even close.
Nope.
That
Nope.
is probably
Nope.
the goal for the up to 6 servers and up to 1,000 connected clients being managed by a single replicant is probably the goal on the upper limit, because well, they have to have, and Naz and I have talked about this, but they have to, and we talked about this when I was streaming, but they have to have breathing room. So imagine you have we're in dynamic server meshing, and you have one replication layer and 4 servers, and that are managing microtech, and so you've got a server that's managing New Babbage and its spaceport and maybe Port Tressler. You've got a server that's managing the rest of the planet, and then a server that's managing the space, within the Microtech planetary system and the moons. And you get and there's like 400 or 500 players in that entire given area connected to that replication layer in those various servers. Well, maybe it's Friday and you suddenly have a surge of people logging in to do just either play on the weekend, or there's an event, and so suddenly a whole bunch of people based in and around Microtech log in, a couple hundred in a very short period of time. Well, it takes time. It doesn't happen instantly, but it also, it doesn't take a super long time, but it takes time to subdivide that that grouping. It's not a shard, because that's just one grouping of a replication layer and multiple servers within what would be the shard, which would have multiple other replication layers managing other groups of servers and connected clients across Pyro, Stanton, Nix, what have you. But if you suddenly have that space fill up with a lot more people, you need to subdivide it again. Well, as an example, Elder Scrolls Online uses a replication layer model, not entirely dissimilar to what static server meshing does for Star Citizen. But their sort of upper limit on their number of connected clients was either 600 or 900, I forget which. Either way, around that, where after that it just falls apart, and so they have a hard limit. Pardon me. So you have to have some room and validate that it will continue to function until you can say, okay, we need more servers here, we need to subdivide this more, but we have to spin up another replicant. So what they would have to do is spin up another replicant, and that first replicant would have to hand off maybe space around Microtech and the servers that weren't New Babbage and Port Tressler would have to hand those off to the previous replicant, or the new replicant, while the current one would have to subdivide New Babbage into multiple servers. And so if you think about everywhere that there's a tram, in between that tram stop and that next place, that could be another server easily, especially for dynamic v1. And so they could say the spaceport is a server, the commons are a server, and whatever, the three tram stops. But trams make it really easy for servers and the replication layer to hand off clients across entity zones, because you've got a tram ride, you've got all that time for that data to go through the replication message queue and then come off on the other end, without a giant issues handing off things between servers, versus if it's bullets being handed off across one server boundary to the next. So that's how that would work, in the meantime. So that way it doesn't all come to a crashing halt. That's initial replicant could handle up to say 1,000 people and 6 servers, while you spin up another replicant to then, okay, here, you take this, I'm gonna have this, and then I'm gonna spin up 2 more servers or whatever to make it to spread the load. So that way I don't have a single server in New Babbage with 600 people. Hopefully that makes sense. Naz, you have anything to add on that?
Nope.
Okay. Meshing Test C. Meshing Test C was conducted on September 19th and included performance optimizations. So they validated the fixes work. The thing works. We are now just optimizing it and going through a series of optimizations. Test C was the first to use a build with the legacy NMQ system stripped out. So they had to strip out the entire old system out to be able to optimize the new system. This was an important step, as RMQ has been designed for greater parallelism. So they couldn't give RMQ all the bandwidth they wanted to give it, because they still had this other system over here in the way. But these optimizations could not be unlocked while we still needed to support NMQ. Test C included the first round of these planned optimizations. So they already have plans, multiple rounds of plans, but they have to implement them in an iterative fashion, and significantly improved our ability to scale before the interaction delay grows and the game becomes unplayable. This test also allowed us to start seeing more gameplay related issues as players spread around the game world, and we were able to experience a mesh universe. So not only are they able to get information on how their server meshing technology is working, but also they're able to get data for gameplay related things that they can pass on to the gameplay teams. Be like, hey, you need to fix this for 4.0. You need to optimize this for 4.0. This test was a big step forward. We were able to successfully identify additional issues present, but walked away from this playtest feeling optimistic. Observations. Zoning in and out times were still problematic at higher player counts. So logging, players logging in, was a huge issue. It took a long time to log in. Many players have XL hangers, but there aren't enough XL gateways when many players spawn in a short period of time. ATC queue times were too high. So are they going to be able to do something about that in 4.0? I don't know. We'll see. Social systems are still tied per game server and not game shard, causing channels to be empty for players in other areas. Player count max looked capped at 100, even though the system is not limited. This work will happen in 4.0 stream. In the 4.0 stream, so as not to introduce large changes in tech preview. So they're not going to worry about the social systems work, in fixing that in tech preview. That won't happen until it, server meshing gets reintroduced into the 4.0 stream. Higher player count and markers are a usability visibility issue and have a performance cost on the client. So this is one thing that Morph really pointed out and was really obvious in his video if you want to go watch it. The large player counts, a lot of player items are not very performant, and it's not a big deal when there's only a couple of people on the screen. But when you have hundreds of people wearing all this fancy high poly gear and everything,
Hmm.
it's not very performant. So that's something that they're going to have to work on.
This is
But
something
at the
Ray
same
talked about like 2, 3 years ago. The absolute concentration is
concentration,
not a problem for servers; it's a problem for clients.
yeah. And this is the thing where optimizing gear, and character stuff is going to be an ongoing thing, but it's mostly probably going to be related to legacy items,
Hmm.
because a lot of the newer items have been made to newer standards and stuff. So they're going to have to go through older stuff, and how much they'll get done, we don't know. But also another big issue, a big part of this is um, the GPU utilization was really low and CPU is really high. And so a lot of this is going to come from we have Vulkan, but we barely have Vulkan in. There's no parallelization with Vulkan right now. So and multi-threading. So that will help a lot of that, but this is going to be an ongoing thing as I go through that backlog. But the UI thing, having all those UI markers is a big performance cost, and so culling those, or making it so that way you only see certain ones at a certain distance. How they make that work, I don't know.
Give us the
Uh,
option to turn them off.
yeah. Bathrooms in New Babbage, and again, this is one of those things where not a big deal when you have a party of 5. But when you have a party of 150 people and they're all on screen and party markers are working, yeah, yeah, there's going to be lots of the AI team, the UI teams that are going to have their hands full. Bathrooms in New Babbage were clogged, causing massive conga lines as players queued up to wait for their turn. That's a troll from Benoit. Latency and interaction delays went up in the 1,000 player test, where clear new performance optimization hotspots were found. This is the focus of the work until the next test. So that's the thing, is they're going to the doing the 1,000 player test showed where these delays were that they weren't apparent with the lower level tests. And so
And
they're
I'm
going
pretty sure
to,
that's where people got the, oh, this is their plan. That's what they're working on until the next test. But they
Mhm.
didn't say that. They said that's what they're working on until the next test. They didn't say this is what we're working on for 4.0. And so people
Yeah,
are extrapolating the this is what we're working on till the next test into this is our plan. Literally not what they said.
yeah.
It's
This is
they're
the
just
focus of the work.
extrapolating from the data, like from data they were given. They're trying to extrapolate a meaning that wasn't said.
Yeah,
Or in basic terms, they took it out of context.
fix find taking getting these performance optimization hotspots addressed that were visible here will make will make it so that way the experience here is that much better.
I'm
And
pretty sure they already confirmed poop mechanics a while ago. Like
yeah.
that's been confirmed. Like that's a thing. And they talked about it last year at CitizenCon. It's called hygiene.
Hmm.
Like that's a thing.
um, a hybrid
It's
crash would cause 30K errors sporadically in the meshing setup. This is the focus of the work until the next test. I did experience a couple crashes, 30Ks, and they 30K'd in that there was no server recovery, which means that it was a
oh
hybrid crash. And
oh those
the
are rare.
hybrid has, yeah, they're very rare, and this is actually something that I talked about specifically with Benoit at CitizenCon. I was like, okay, so if we have the replication layer and the replication layer is connecting hundreds of clients and multiple servers and stuff, what happens if the replication layer crashes? He's like, well, it shouldn't, because he's like, it's a he's like, it can, and if it does, then that part of that shard will go down, or in case of static server meshing, that shard will go down. He's like, it can happen. It won't happen very often, just because it's a very robust system, and it's also not a thing where like causes this. It's not this really taxing environment, unlike a server where a server will just get bogged down. with the replication layer, things will just get added up into the queue and it'll just be slow, but it won't crash. But they have noticed that, pardon me, there are some errors that will cause it to crash. But this is great that they are finding this in tech preview, so that way these things can be addressed in tech preview before we even get to testing, before it ever makes it anywhere close to live. So that way these crashes to the hybrid, which would, this is where it would be like the old days where a server crashed and everything was gone. Now, if you have a server crash and you have server recovery, like I was playing, not last night, but the night before, I was playing without streaming, and I have my
Why? That's
server
legal.
crash. Yeah, I didn't have the energy. I just wanted to run box missions. And, it took 12, 15 seconds for my new server to spin back up. And I was like, I haven't had one of these in ages, but, it spun back up and everything was working just fine. The only thing that bothered me is I had just run back inside to my ship to drop off a bunch of things that I had looted at an outpost. And I was about to drop off my backpack in the ship to go and get the backpack that I wanted that I had found in a red crate. And when I went back in the outpost, that red crate was not there.
Oh,
And I was like, oh man, I really wanted that backpack. But the really weird thing is I took another delivery mission to another outpost from there, and I found in the exact same spot because the outposts are laid out this, it was the outpost, it was a mining outpost, so it was laid out the same.
yeah.
It was a red crate in one of the the mining control rooms or whatever. In the exact same spot, there was another red crate that had the exact same backpack in it. And I was like, okay, that's
Nice.
weird. And so I did end up getting it. Sorry, tangent, but I was
Nice.
very happy to get that backpack. I am my in-game character for my zero to hero is the level of frugal that my wife wishes I was. Yeah. So yeah, the post-action report for Meshing Test C for me is super encouraging, super
Mm-hmm.
encouraging, and I I debated. I was like, Naz, do we want to go over this now or do we want to wait until the next test? But I'm like, if we keep doing that, we're just going to keep kicking the can after each test because they're going to do more, you know.
Yep.
But after having this,
Yep.
I was like, we got to cover this. So, yeah. Yeah, was it the same cat? And the last section for you, Naz.
Last section for me. I completely went to a different window because I thought we were done.
Yeah, this is a really
Onward.
great post. I hope we get more of these because
Yeah.
this is the kind of communication
Benoit,
we need
like,
more often.
I don't know what
And
kind of
we should
like
have had this for
higher.
the RMQ earlier.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
what
know what kind of
my one
higher
critique.
level Benoit has ascended to after being hired on as the CTO.
He's Benoit the
CTO?
White.
C whatever he is. Yeah, he's now Benoit
He
the
was
White. Like he has
he was
gotten
Benoit the Gray. Now he's the
so
White.
much. Like he's been posting more. Like obviously now he's in the company, so it's his company too now. But he's just been doing so much awesome stuff since he's been brought into the CIG company. So we're under the onward bit is where we're at.
Yep.
Yep. All right. While these early results are promising, steps forward are the promising steps forward. We are aware that challenges remain. We're committed to tackling each hurdle through rapid iteration, always aiming to improve your gaming experience. To those who have participated in these tests, your dedication is truly inspiring. Taking time out of your day to come and try our new features and tech, much respect. It is a pleasure and a privilege to progress on this technology together. Your insights and patience are invaluable as we transform our game to be the MMO we always wanted it to be. We're excited about the path ahead and will keep you all updated on our journey. Thank you for being an integral part of this ambitious project with us. '07 Benoit.
Yeah. Benoit is awesome. I'm a big fan of Benoit. I had such a great time chatting with him at CitizenCon, but this write up and then what he wrote in um, the postmortem for 318 and 319, like everything he puts out is uh,
Pretty sure he was also in the letter for the
gold.
chairman last one
Yep.
we had.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I
Big,
like
big posts.
was it Tomato put out a YouTube poll today. It was like are do you feel good about the direction or something of the project right now, Star Citizen? And like yeah, I feel really good about the development right now. Like it's moving so fast and they know the road ahead. Even if stuff makes the development slower, they still know what's ahead. And the people who are now in charge of the overall project, being um, Benoit on the technology side and Tyler on the like game direction, after proving his worth in Squadron, is now on the precipice of release. Um, and we know it's been confirmed feature complete last year. So they've had 12 months of post feature complete work. The monthly report of August for Squadron was this big. Like if you zoom out, it's like it's there's what 5 teams, and it's all like we did some tool work, we made them stand in one place better. Like it's really minor stuff. Um, what you got there?
This post.
Am I supposed to be looking at something specific?
From Daniel Roseberg Drake. Excited for CitizenCon 2954. Can you guess what we'll be showing? Question mark, smiley face. I've been at CIG for 4 years working on Squadron
Ah,
42 and very much looking forward to finally meet this incredible community. And it's the gif of the Vanduul coming in through the cleaver
yeah, the
boarding
closing scene
torpedo.
of I Helped the Line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we all knew they were showing Squadron. Like, we just don't know at what capacity. Like
Yeah.
the amount, and Jared also tweeted 2 different posts this month of uh, uh at least one post of Jeff Delaney, the composer of Squadron.
Oh yeah.
So it's there are those few who think that Squadron will be released at CitizenCon. To that I say that would be a horrible idea because there's been no ads run, no lead up taken, and that would make the performance worse. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants the performance of Squadron to be bad. So they can't release it at CitizenCon. We all want them to hit the ground running, saying, here's the release date, and then the entire internet lights up with 2 things. One, Squadron released, and 2, they've missed all these things that's probably not coming out. All those articles will benefit Squadron's release. Um, what's his name? There goes the name. Mark Hamill also tweeted out today that he's excited for the release of Squadron 42. So this is exactly the time. Like we were talking about this over the year. A couple people did this question. Did Squadron miss its time? The answer we now know is no. It is a perfect time to start Squadron's release and to get the ball rolling and to finally release a freaking game.
Mm-hmm.
And what a freaking game it's gonna be! Like it's CitizenCon is going to be just the best. I can't wait. It's gonna be so good.
It's going to be very different from last year because
Mm-hmm.
Squadron's going to be the focus, and I think people expecting another year like last year are going to be disappointed. But I think if you go into it expecting a lot of Squadron and a lot of, hey, this is where we are now with Star Citizen, and this is where we're going, and here are our plans, because that's it. Like, and we're going to get more into this here in a second, but the
It's also like the
like
last CitizenCon of Squadron. Like, sure, we'll probably get another kind of hype CitizenCon around part 2 and part 3, but like it will never be as big as the release of episode 1.
yeah, but it's like where we're at with server meshing development right now, it's like we're a quarter off or so of where they wanted to be. Like, when in Star Citizen's history have we only been a quarter off of where they wanted to be? We've been measuring delays in years, and multiple quarters for the longest time, and now we're finally narrowing the gap, and the expectations are changing, and CIG's finally getting accurate with their much more accurate with their predictions. Are they spot on? No. Should we ever expect that? Absolutely not.
It's game driven. It
But
never will be. Like that's
yeah,
no game has internally accurate predictions. Not a one. This is
yeah,
why games like have a trailer, and then when you get to play the game, half that content was cut. It's because their internal development went awry
yeah.
through
All
like
right.
no fault of the game's devs. Game development is just messy. It is not a science. It's an art.
Mm-hmm. And that's just the game development side. That's
Of
not
course,
engine
GTA 6.
development. That's not development of an entire back end to support an MMO. That's just the game. All
I
right, I'm going to switch
imagine
screens
also
before we
Rockstar is
launch into
really
the.
scared. Like they need to make GTA perfect. Because if they don't, they will be buried. And they will not be given another chance. If GTA 6 doesn't hit right the first time, it will be abandoned for GTA 5. And if they decide that, hey, we're just gonna shut off GTA 5 servers, they will be hacked and their data will be stolen to make independent servers if it's not already a thing. I'm not in the GTA community. I don't know. Like, it is such a force of nature by this time. If they don't make it good, it will. There's a good chance like Rockstar will have to like pull out and a lot of projects and cut their workforce. Those servers exist. Okay. So yeah, if GTA doesn't hit, they'll just abandon it for private servers for GTA 5.
All right, I'm going to switch screens before we hop into our Spectrum Pulse for the evening because we're kind of leaning towards that direction.
Yep.
All right, and open that up. Okay. And switching back now. Okay, so our Spectrum Pulse for the evening. Because, and this has been a big thing throughout the community, which is why we call these things Spectrum Pulse, because it's essentially one of the communities talking about something. It's a pulse across the spectrum, whether it's spectrum, the actual thing, the forums, or the spectrum of communications, metaphorically speaking.
Oh, the spectrum of opinions.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of talk about the CitizenCon promises and what CR said and what he promised, and talking about the 12 months and stuff. And so there's been videos on it. Space Tomato did a really good video. There's been a lot of people tracking the features and stuff. And so I thought it was time for Nazeris and I to weigh in and provide some accurate context in order to set expectations a bit more appropriately, but also to have people be accurately informed about what was said and why we should be expecting certain things, why we shouldn't be expecting other things. Do you think we'll get more Jax McClear at this IE? God, I hope so. I love Jax. Jax is the best.
And so I don't know if it was your Discord or Paul's Discord. I think it was Paul's Discord. Somebody said, I hope we get a Jax McCleary's or Jax's farm or something to line up with where Clarkson, the inspiration for Jax's kind of character. And somebody had a problem with the parallels of not so perfect people being the model for in-game people. One of the best things about using someone as a character reference is you can polish out the bad bits. And from my own viewing experience of Jeremy Clarkson and Jax McCleary, Jax is a much more humble and loving character.
Yeah.
Um,
He's not
he
100% inspired by. He's inspired by aspects of that person. Not
yeah,
like he's not a copy. Just like we don't have to
just
copy. Silas Corner doesn't have to be a copy of. Um,
the
oh
owner
God.
of X.
Yeah, the owner of X, the owner of Tesla. Yeah.
You want his name?
Elon.
Elon Musk.
He doesn't have
Yeah.
to be a copy of Elon. He's loosely inspired by some, like he's his own character that shares some similarities. Like, it doesn't
Function
have
is
to be
definitely
a
not based.
yeah. It's what's
Do
the
you know
joke with
why
Star
they
Wars
ended
and
Top Gear?
Disney, legally distinct. You know,
Yeah, legally distinct. The reason they ended Top Gear is because Clarkson assaulted a producer.
yeah, that'll get you fired.
I was allegedly, I should say, so no one can come after me. Allegedly assaulted a producer. I don't know anything further than that. So like, yeah. But no, like they've shown in the Jackson McCleary videos, like he is a much more kind of in his own head, um, like a lot less going to scream at people in the world that he lives in. Even though he's a loud character, he loves his producers. He loves Jimmy.
Oh my God, Blizzrad.
It's loosely inspired Jared. I thought he was loosely inspired by Deadpool. Speaking of Jared, though, another tangent. This week he's getting scanned in as a character into
Oh, there's no
into the
sound
game.
for it. Oh man, I
Just
thought I
have to
had the
cry
sound.
burrito time.
Why is it?
I can't believe you got those.
No.
Those notes.
Hold on. I'm pretty sure I had.
I
Sorry,
want
this
them
one.
to. I want them to have an entire team dedicated to upkeep and production of these videos. I want the reunion part 2. I want um a every now and then update on Garmin Humble. I forget her name. I'm sorry. The social media person. Like those, just like a life or a day in the life inverse. Like they're so good, and I love them so much.
Oh, I guess. Oh, this is the one I uploaded to turn into a GIF. Dang it. Where did?
Ah.
Oh wait, no. Hold on. Now I know where it is. Um,
Like I want, and maybe that's what the cinematic team like works on in the interim between Squadron 1 and 2.
why is it not? It's so quiet.
What
Oh,
about if we got mission
oh, there we go.
chains with them? I feel like that would be like too much of a commitment. We still have like a bunch of
Stop the
a bunch of
crime.
backlog on mission chains and
Burrito
mission
time.
stories. Like we still don't have mission givers we
Shoulda
had in
stretched,
game
scumbag.
back up and running. We
Mission
don't
complete.
have like their
Burrito.
thing. We're supposed to be getting
I
location mission
hang
chains
up.
as well as mission givers. I'm sorry, am I talking over it?
Sorry, I just had to play those. I have those in my
Okay.
stream when I do gameplay streams.
Nice. But yeah, I would love if there was a team made to make those videos.
I want them to do videos for the medic that they did. They did that post for. Remember seeing that it was the written medic, the written post about that medic character at IE last year. I want a video for that guy. That'd be cool.
I mean, Tessa Bandos, yeah, and we still have Tessa. Like they've said, Tessa will return. However, if they return her as a junior cartographer, I will riot. Like they should definitely give her a promotion in the interim between being a
Oh,
junior
North End
cartographer
Trooper.
and
Put in the sound bites into the Twitch. I'll have to do that at some point.
yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
And they get
give me your
scammed.
crayons to do quotes for Garmin Humble. All right,
Yep.
let's watch this clip.
Man.
So, regarding the 12 months, regarding the everything you see here, blah blah blah. There's two quotes.
Everything the light touches.
Yeah, there's two quotes. The first one was 33 minutes into the day one full broadcast. I remember this quote very distinctly because I was sitting over here somewhere. Northern Trooper was there. Yeah, crayons for the crayon god. But I remember this very distinctly. And this is what stuck in my mind. And so when everybody started talking about, everything after 12 months. I was like, wait, what? So let's listen to what Chris Roberts actually said, and then I'll read it back to you verbatim.
You want to hit captions as well, just so they're on.
And a lot of what you're going to see is going to be coming into Star Citizen over the next 12 months. Even a few little things will come into 322 at the end of this year. But definitely next year, a lot of what you'll be seeing will be coming in, and it's going to make a dramatically different experience in Star Citizen. So I'm very, very excited on that.
So I'm going to read.
Anyway, I can't wait to see what you guys think.
What came out afterwards.
Going to read what he said again, so that way there's no confusion.
So I heard SU's done next year.
A lot of what you're going to see is going to be coming into Star Citizen over the next 12 months. So he said over the next 12 months, even a few little things will come into 322. So he's separating 322 from the 12 months part. He's saying next 12 months and in 322, which was Q4 last year. So he was talking from the beginning. He was talking about all of 2024. But definitely next year, a lot of what you'll be seeing will be coming in, and it's going to make a dramatically different experience in Star Citizen. So I'm very excited on that. So from the beginning, Chris Roberts was setting the stage to say a lot of what we would be seeing at CitizenCon. Not everything, a lot. And he was saying that we were going to get a little bit at 322 in Q4 of last year, but next year, all of 2024. And then again, this is at the 4 hour and 27 minute and 34 second mark on the day 2 presentation towards the very end. Let's see what he says here. And this is where the confusion is. But remember what he said initially at the beginning of CitizenCon before he got all emotional, because back here somewhere, or whenever the squadron presentation is, like, he literally was crying. Like, I was almost crying. But
I was crying.
Yeah. It's very emotional time for him to be able to see his people, showing off their incredible work and everything they've been doing. A lot of it is everything they've been doing for the last few years, because he talked about how they've been doing that in the umbrella of Squadron without having to get it ready for a patch every 3 months, which is why they've been able to make all this progress and get it done.
The amount of hate that they've gotten over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Good or not for the project, for publicity, it does wear on them. It does.
Yeah.
It does.
He's
stick
commented
in their head.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he reads the posts. He doesn't reply very often, but he reads stuff and he sees things and he knows. So let's see what he says.
I hope you've enjoyed everything you've seen in these last 2 days.
What the?
Introducing Chris Roberts.
Why did it do that at a different timestamp? That's weird. 4:27:34. How did 4:27? Well, that was okay.
I hope you've enjoyed everything you've seen in these last 2 days. We were really excited to show you a lot of it. And I've sort of seen some online comments about, okay, well, that's very cool, but when are we going to get it in the game? But one of the real reasons why we wanted to show you this CitizenCon is because we've hit an inflection point on a lot of the features, as in they're either finished or they're in polishing stage, which is why we're showing them. So everything that we've been showing you here at CitizenCon is our...
We've hit an inflection point on a lot of the features. Not everything, but a lot of them, that they're finished or in polishing. So not everything that we saw at CitizenCon was finished or in the polishing phase. And Naz and I are going to talk about that, because there are things where if you watch the presentations and you're like, okay, this they showed off, it's in polishing. That's being used in game, in engine, it's working, versus this is a tech demo. And CIG has gotten a lot of flack for tech demo things in the years past, where there was a lot of tech demo stuff going on, or using smoke and mirrors to show what they were going towards, but it wasn't anywhere near being in game. Whereas this was all, not all, but a lot of it was in-engine, in-game, in a polishing state. But we're going to talk about some of the things that were very much still, hey, this is what we're at. We are demoing the tech, but it's not ready for prime time yet. And we're going to talk about what those are in a few minutes.
Our intention, not making 100% promise, just so everyone remembers that.
It's our intention, not making any promises. So when everybody says, you guys promise this in the next 12 months, no, he literally says that.
Also,
We're
just
not
to
promising.
show how in tune he is with the community, he said he already saw posts about CitizenCon during CitizenCon. So this is at the end of day 2, so he's had a little bit of downtime. But he's already been on social medias and probably Spectrum, hearing people say, that's great, but when's it coming out? That's how much he is reading people's content. Instead of just like, okay, Squadron Day's over, go to bed, he, during CitizenCon, was looking at what the community was talking about.
Yep. Yeah, people locking onto keywords and hearing what they want to hear based off of their own bias and their own preconceived notions, not hearing what was actually said.
Everyone has bias. It's just a matter of can you check it? Can you say, I know I have a bias? Like, I have a bias towards trusting people. And for that, I have, like, good people to be around, like Tree, like Paul, like Smithy. They're really good at saying, well, probably not. And probably this is much more of a realistic expectation. And that is a really good way of checking your expectation. Find someone who disagrees with you. And when you just go on Spectrum and say, oh, this sucks, and people go, yeah, it sucks, you get nowhere. You get absolutely nowhere.
Yeah. Find somebody who disagrees with you. Find somebody who read the same thing, listened to the same thing, hear what they heard, hear what they read, talk about the thing, and then reread it after having talked to those people. That's why Naz and I read the monthly reports. Is like, when we're reading it to you guys, or the roadmap or whatever, any of these things, it's usually the second or third time that each of us we have read it, and we've also talked about it after having read it. And happens all the time where Naz will be, I'll have read something, be like, oh my God, did you read this? And Naz will be like, well, that didn't say that. I'm like, go back and, oh, you're right. And
we discuss that all the time in both Paul's and your Discord, like, this word, and like 5 different people like, I read it this way, or I read it this way. And like, you don't necessarily have to agree with the person who doesn't have the same opinion as you. As long as you understand that there is a different opinion, you can then move forward knowing that if you are wrong, you can adjust, and you can then have the other opinion to then be able to use both your failed opinion or correct one and the other failed or correct opinion to adjust your bias in the future.
Yep. Yeah, it is a learned skill. It's something that takes practice to achieve, but also maintain,
To get them into Star Citizen through next year. So it's not going to be gated on having to be after Squadron 42. So we are... So we're planning over the Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 of next year. Hopefully, everything that we've shown you, you will have in your hands playing inside Star Citizen. So,
let's see, was that the end of the quote? Yeah. So,
yeah.
Reread what he said. I hope you've enjoyed everything you've seen these last 2 days. We were really excited to show you a lot of it, and I've sort of seen some online comments about, okay, well, that's very cool, but when are we going to get it in game? But one of the real reasons why we wanted to show you this, all this at CitizenCon, is because we've hit an inflection point on a lot of the features, as in they're either finished or they are in the polishing stage, which is why we're showing them. So everything that we've been showing you here at CitizenCon is our intention, not making 100% promise. So again, not making 100% promise, just so everyone remembers that, to get them into Star Citizen through next year. So we're not, it's not going to be gated on having to be after Squadron 42. So we're planning over the next Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 of next year. Hopefully, everything that we've shown you, you will have in your hands playing inside Star Citizen. So, take that for what he said.
Only what he said.
Only what he said. All of 2024, including Q4 2023, 3.22, and then everything that is complete and in polishing, and that's the complete and polishing, and that's why he said a lot of in the beginning, because a lot of the things they showed us were complete and in polishing, but there were things that were not complete and were not in polishing that people were like, well, they showed us that, and it's like, well, that's not what they meant.
Like base building, like that wasn't even in production at all.
Base building and crafting aren't even in production. They didn't even show, like concept art of crafting. They just showed base building, a base. And
well, they had some thumbnails.
Yeah, they had some thumbnails, but it wasn't like the video that they showed. It wasn't. Neither of those things were even in production. People were like, well, you said that would be, and it's like, no, he was talking about the things that were either complete or in polishing, the things that they have been working on in Squadron, and those are the things where they did gameplay demos. If they did a gameplay demo, those are the things where they should be showing it. And if it was a tech demo where it was demonstrated in a limited capacity, those are the things where it's like, probably not. So, those are those things where, like when I was watching him, I like, and Naz and I disagree on a couple of these things, which is fine. That's what we're talking about. But like, in particular, like global illumination ray tracing, I saw that demo. I was like, that looks cool. That doesn't look like it's anywhere close to being ready for prime time. And to me, that's one of those things where they are getting it ready for Squadron, and because they can't release Squadron without that. Well, what game is going to release without global illumination ray tracing at this point? But to then port that over into the MMO environment and with all of Star Citizen's environments and stuff, and all the other different ways that can work and get tested, is a much bigger ask. And so to me, I saw that, I'm like, okay, that's a tech demo. They are demonstrating that they are building the tech, but it is not like demonstrating the star map. The star map was demonstrated in a PU environment. The flight model, master modes, that was demonstrated. The MFDs, that sort of stuff was very complete. It wasn't just a limited tech demo, and so that's why I was like, I don't expect that in next year.
Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Messer Technologies.
Part of the crew, part of the crew, part of the
man.
Part of the crew, part of the ship.
That's terrifying.
Oh, God. Thank you for the follow, Messer Technologies. Good to see you. Thanks for coming and hanging out this evening.
Is your name named after Star Citizen?
Which came first? Oh gosh. But there was a handful of things that were like that, and so I never expected those to come this year. I don't expect them to take that much longer, but I think that we're not going to see those sorts of things until 2025. With these two quotes in mind, we're going to look at two lists. And so the first, you may recognize this one if you watched Space Tomatoes video. Somebody in the community, this is a group of people, but they made a list of features and they made a list based off what they thought were the biggest features. And so they have 56 of the biggest features from CitizenCon, and 27 out of those 56 have been released so far. And so they don't have it broken down based off of what is planned for 4.0. This is just what's in game right now. And what's in game right now is essentially half of the biggest listed features based off of their list. But they have base building on here. They have ray trace GI, global illumination. They have, let's see, where's what was the other thing?
Data running.
Yeah, they had data running on here. They talked about data running. They said in the future we want to be able
Yeah.
to do this. They didn't
It
even
was.
show
They
that.
didn't even show it.
You
It
know.
was in the future. We will be working on scanning. That's.
Yeah,
It was
in the
during
future-
the ship part. Like it wasn't even
Yeah.
during the like.
in the
that
future you'll
part.
be able to take these pins and then share them with people and sell them and stuff. But it wasn't demonstrated or anything like that. That mechanic wasn't shown. So why that's on this list, I don't know. But it's a pretty good list. It is a pretty good list.
It is a good. There's nice words to say about it. Average view. Average
Yeah.
viewer list.
Base building is on here. I think crafting was in here somewhere too. So I went through this list and I removed the things where I was like, what? And so it brought the list down
Crafting
to.
was in here at one point. I don't see it anymore.
I thought it was still in here, but I removed the data running. I removed the base building. I removed the ray trace GI, and I think I got it down to 51 or 52. And so let's see. So it was 27 divided by 51 is a little over half. And this is without 3.24.2. This is without 4.0. Is a little over half of everything that's to be expected. And he said a lot, so keep that in mind. And so I did the math. I found all the things that are either targeted for 4.0 or 3.24.2, as well as a few of the things that are likely. And that was the other thing. Container attributes. They showed us concept art, and they talked about it. Like, this is the goal in the future, but they didn't say that, it wasn't like how they demonstrated personal hangars and cargo loading and unloading. It wasn't in engine with a container, blowing up or needing to be, sprayed down with cool or whatever,
And I think there's even a bit that from that quote that I didn't even pick up on, and that is a little bit farther back in the quote. Okay, so taking the entire paragraph, the reason we are showing you all this, and I'm going to paraphrase a couple things and hit the points in this paragraph. The reason we are showing you all this is because these features have hit an inflection point. A lot of the features, as in are in early, are either finished or in polishing. Skipping down, not
I know
being
what you're talking
gated
about.
by squadron.
Mm-hmm.
He specifically, that entire paragraph of his comment is talking about the features from Squadron have hit an inflection point that they are ready to port them into Star Citizen. And those are the features that he specifically said, word for word here, that are coming in the next, technically, 13, 14, 15 months, because it's the next 3 months or 2-ish months after CitizenCon and the next
2024
year.
plus the what's little is left of, because really at CitizenCon there's a week of October left, and then November, and then 2.5 weeks of December. There's 2 months left in the year to them.
Yeah. So in the year of some stuff that came in 320, whatever it was, through 2, and then the entire year of the entire year of 2024, what he was talking about coming in was specifically the stuff that was already done. So whether you think it was done or not doesn't really matter. That's just kind of a perception thing. But the stuff that he said is coming in, is planned to come in over the next year, is the stuff from Squadron. If it wasn't in Squadron, not coming in. Or not mentioned as coming in.
So
Which is
when
something I did not pick up on till just now.
when I went down through this list and found all the things that are planned for 4.0 and 3.24.2, And some of these things are like lumped in, but when I went down and broke all those down, what's basically coming out of this list that's announced for the rest of the year essentially comes out to, I think it was 37 out of 51. So let's do 37. I'm not going to go down one for one. Is over 70%. So 70%. So 70 a lot of what you'll see here. If we're at 70% of everything, that's good. That's a lot. That's more than a majority. That's more than a majority. That's more than a super majority, which would be 66%. Like that for CIG. Who everybody has given just so much crap over the years for being wildly inaccurate with their predictions. For Chris Roberts to say we're trying to get a lot of what you'll see here. If they're able to get 70% of what they showed off into our hands in that time frame that he laid off, they'll have hit their goals as they stated them. When has Chris Roberts ever been accurate? And the fact that people are losing their minds and being all doom and gloom about it, and it's like, well, wait a minute. If we get 4.0 before the end of the year, which, hello, we're not even at the end of September.
It's hilarious that people are so caught up in trying to be doom and gloom that in their own heads, they have invented a sentence that they've read somewhere that it says that 4.0 has been delayed until next year.
Yeah.
And I say it like that because it is as persistent as Flat Earth is right now, that somewhere someone said that 4.0 is delayed until next year. It is wild that like the community invented a delay to stay mad.
Yeah, to stay mad when all of this stuff has already made it in the in the first two patches of the first patch and patch 1.5 essentially of the year, and we've got a bunch more stuff that's coming in 3.2 4.2 that's been able to be migrated from 4.0 because they're like, hey, these things aren't being held up by server meshing, they're ready, so put them in. The game is dramatically different and dramatically improved, and people are upset because we made more progress this year than we've ever made before, but it wasn't everything that you said. It's like, oh my God, stop moving. Put the goalpost down. You're going to wear yourself out.
Stop it. Put it down.
So that's this list. And again, this link will be in the show notes. It's a good starting list and everything like that. They're doing a good job. But at the same time, let's be accurate. Let's have realistic expectations. But 70% is definitely, for me, like, how do you quantify a lot of? Does a lot of mean 90% to you and 70% to me? No, but like to me, that's more than a super majority. That's a lot of. When you're talking about a lot of, you're talking about a majority of what you're in. 70% is a majority. That's good. Now that is contingent on 4.0 making it this year. But even if 4.0 doesn't make it this year, they're going to continue to add features as they get done. And we're going to look at some of that here in a few minutes. But before we do, of course, Nazeris took it to an entirely different level. He took this, injected it with whatever space meth we have in Star Citizen.
Yeah.
And made his own shit.
Every single, not every single minute, but I watched every single presentation back at CitizenCon. And I not only noted the same features, but I also, if they mentioned a feature, I listed it down.
Dibley, I have high expectations. Don't let me down.
So before the stream, I also did a copy of it because we did remove. So there at the bottom, you'll see we're on copy of sheet 1, and that is removing the features that were obviously not shown for coming in the next year. Now, because I
Danger
just
hobo,
realized
C's get degrees. Okay, so
because now I also know that most of the stuff, like if it was built for Squadron, is what he meant. We can cut this down way farther. We'll not be doing that on stream. It's already 12:20. Eventually, after sleep, I do have stuff to do in the morning and work tomorrow. Finally,
but we did go through this while we were talking, and we
Yes.
pulled a few things out from the list, in order to make the list based off of, okay, these are the things that were shown. This is what you can base a lot off of, and so Naz is like a fine tooth comb. It's impressive, and this again will be linked in the show notes as well if you want to take a look at it. Because some of these things I was like, I don't remember that at all.
you'll keep forgetting.
black out?
Apparently, raids were in there.
Mm-hmm.
They were in there. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and that was a thing. They demonstrated what they want a raid to look like, and they talked about, hey, we want to have raids in the future, but
Yeah.
it was
It's like, hey, this is and they specifically said, this is an early gameplay. And remember, Chris said everything he was talking about was coming in the next 12 months, next year, 2014 or 2024, is stuff that had hit the inflection point of being in polish or done.
Mm-hmm.
And they specifically said raids were not even concept complete. It was an early gameplay demo validating a concept.
Yeah, we could go back and find the quotes and find the things, but that like we're just laying it out for you. Like
We're 2 weeks away from CitizenCon. It's relevant at this point.
yeah,
It's time to reset the clock and do it again.
but yeah, so Naz's list is really comprehensive, and he's got everything's broken down into color. Like green is in game now, yellow, some of it's been added in, like the scope shaders, some of the gun audio, like the like not everything for the the star maps in, but not everything's in. What's another good example?
Weaponware malfunction.
Mm-hmm.
We have weaponware. I don't know if the malfunction is actually in there. Does it jam? Do you have the animation that plays when it gets jammed?
But then red
but a
is
lot of this stuff, like on the other list had very like large categories. A lot of this stuff, like ladder sliding, player animation, interactable usables, a lot of stuff is going to be delivered all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this stuff, especially that is red, but even is red but doesn't have a 4.0 marker, is just in 4.0, and it's not a big enough feature for them to talk about it not at CitizenCon. Not all of these things got their own panel at CitizenCon. They were kind of like lumped in with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like under resource network, there was also engineering. I just split up the two because one's the gameplay, one's the feature. They talked about tuner mechanic, lead engineer, spreading misfires, signature bursts, wear and tear, repair and replace, turn it on and off. All things they mentioned while talking about engineering. A lot of that stuff can be broken off into nuances for their own features, but it was all referenced by the same thing. So some of the stuff just didn't get its own bits. Some of the stuff got its own bits that we don't know where it is, because when they mention something bigger, they also mean that. Kind of like the character experience, I think it was, listed on the old roadmap, V23, whatever we're up to now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Well, like vehicles being brought in from freight elevators. We know that didn't make it into 3.24. They're still working on that. Chad talked about that recently. Maybe it'll make it in before the end of the year. Maybe it won't. We don't know.
Yep.
There's a lot of change. If you're in my Discord or in other Discords and you see the leaks, there's a lot of things that are being sneakily brought into 3.2.4.2 that are in the patch notes, or that are in the leaked files that show that they're working on things, that they're making progress. So we shall see. Because like Naz is going to continue to update this, as we go, and to see where we actually end up at the end of the year, as a retrospective. But we wanted to cover this before we got to CitizenCon, and because it's timely. But like there's a few things where like we talked about global illumination and ray tracing. But to me, that was very much a tech demo. The Maelstrom, that was a tech demo.
Maelstrom is the one where we absolutely disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go first and explain.
And it's because they showed it in a very limited capacity. They showed it in Squadron in a very specific level, and then they showed it with the Gladius and a one little piece of a location. And when they're describing it and talking about how it's they basically say that the network it works well over a networked environment, that shouldn't have any issues due to lag or whatever, but also that it was artist friendly. And so that means that as artists it isn't a giant ask for CIG's art teams to convert things back into the way Maelstrom works, but that still means that they have to do that work as well as on things going forward, and it's not a small ask. And so that's why I didn't think that they would just be able to, okay, well, the feature is finished and now we can turn it on, because there's an art a pretty massive art debt that is going to take a while. Now, granted, a lot of this stuff is systemic, because that's how CIG does things. It's why when they add in Pyro, the size of the game on your hard drive isn't going to double, because they reuse the same assets. They just either reskin them differently, and use the serialized variables, or they are able to put other assets on top of them and layer things in order to make it look different and look completely different, but it's just using things that are in the same library. And so they have to go back through the libraries to adjust all these different entities in order to give them these properties. But once they do, this wall of this type, well, it affects all the walls that are of that type, even though they look, differently. They're skinned up differently, or this door, or this thruster and such. But it's still a lot of work. And so to me, that's why I was like, this is a tech demo. It's a cool tech demo, and I'm glad this is where they're going with it. But we got a long ways before this is a full feature in the PU.
And then I looked at a lot of the same points, like what they showed, where they showed it, and I drew the exact opposite conclusion. Like, they showed it both in Squadron and in Star Citizen, in Pyro, on an outpost that was in a live environment. Not live environment, but it wasn't a cordoned off section. It was on a planet at an outpost that was procedurally generated. And they haven't said anything about reworking Squadron to include Maelstrom in all the assets. They haven't talked about, like, they talked about in the resource network, that they had to go and apply it to all their ships. They didn't say anything of that with the monthly reports that we've had since then about Maelstrom having to, like, this giant ask for the game. And so I think that Maelstrom was or is one of those things that we should be looking for to get in the next 12 months. So, and this is one of the things that we both read the same thing, saw the same stuff, and we came to a different conclusion on. Mm-hmm. This is interesting, and we'll have to see where we get to.
It's encouraging too, because was it in the June or July report? It was within the last few months. They said that Maelstrom is in the main dev branch, and everybody has access to it now, and so the entire company can start using it. And so now we're at that point where, when
did they say that about server meshing? Because they said that about server meshing like 6 months after CitizenCon or something.
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
But you do remember them actually saying it?
I remember the Maelstrom one, but that was the thing for me is, especially after reading that, I was like, oh yeah, they're still working on the tech for it at this point. It hadn't even been enabled across the dev stream yet. But you're right that they did show it off in a Squadron environment, and I think that's where it was one of those things where they showed it off in Squadron just like and it's gonna need to be in Squadron, just like global illumination and ray tracing is gonna need to be in Squadron, but its implementation in Squadron is going to be dramatically less than
Probably,
Star
yeah.
Citizen.
Yeah, but going back to the closing comments, like the features in Squadron have hit an inflection point. So like, I can
Yeah.
see it both ways. Honestly, I can see it both ways, and I will not be disappointed either way. Knowing the tech exists is enough for me.
Oh yeah, knowing the tech exists
Like how
and
much
knowing
noise.
that it's in the main dev branch now. Like if it comes in 2024, hooray! I don't see it happening, but knowing that it's in the main dev branch means that they're making really good progress on it, and we're gonna probably see an update on it at CitizenCon and see a lot of that work coming in over the next year, because it's in the main dev branch. Like that's what that means. It means everybody it has access to it, and everyone's going to be using it because this is the path forward for CIG for their damage model. So I'm not going to go through everything in the patch notes, but these patch notes are available. They pop up in the news channel in my Discord and multiple other channels and stuff. For the Evocati patch notes are not hidden anymore. They're public information, and so there's a lot of these things are things that were 4.0 and now are getting moved up. But there's a lot of quality of life upgrades and everything. But then there's also an unofficial list that's going around of things that have been found in Evo.
Why didn't you put that in the document?
Oh, because I just got it like this afternoon. So
Doing
will
it
be.
live.
Yeah.
What? Can I has?
Yeah, I absolutely. Let's see. Oh, I have to ask to share.
Oh. You can't just copy what's in your URL.
Well, I don't know, maybe. We'll see. Test it with Naz. You're the guinea pig. But this is another list, and it's an ongoing list that's being made by a member of the community that they're updating and stuff. So there are things in here that are in 3.2.4.2 that we thought were going to be in 4.0, or things that weren't even noted. Smaller items that might have been on Nazeris' list. So things to cross check against. So I picked the big items to me that were the way they were demonstrated. I was like, okay, these are the things I expected to see this year based off of how they were shown and how much was shown of them. And especially in the context of what Chris Roberts said. And it's going to make a dramatically different experience than Star Citizen. So a lot of the things that we've gotten in the game have really changed the experience. The star map, the new UIs that have come in and AR markers. The MFDs are going to be huge. The personal interaction experience and system has been really great. The looting UI, so many different things have come into the game that have made the experience feel so much better, and it's so much more functional and reliable and less buggy. But visually, it looks like it's on par with where Star Citizen should be in 2024. In contrast with other games. So that's why I picked these three items, because they're big ticket items that really would go a long way to changing the experience in Star Citizen and bring it up to par with the other things that we've gotten. And the first is the quantum travel experience. So I found a couple. What's that?
Focus mode is apparently in 324.2.
Focus mode.
It is a UI, technically player interaction edition. And I can actually make that on the list now. It is something they talked about. So it's basically a addition to the player interaction system. When you go up to a screen, currently, well, previous to 324, I don't know if they changed it specifically, but I've noticed it used to just kind of grab your face and attach it to the terminal. In 324, it kind of just doesn't just do anything. And it just kind of like activates the screen and lets you kind of like be wherever. And it's a lot less magnety. Like if you pull away, it will just kind of close and let you back off. Focus mode actually moves your character up to the terminal and focuses in on
Oh,
it.
I see what you're talking about.
And it's a lot smoother when you try to pull away. It's not like holding backwards for like a second and a half before your character like rips its face away from the console. It just kind of slowly fades out. Yeah.
Yeah, you pop off like a suction cup.
Slowly fades out. Yeah. So focus mode is in 324.2 according to that unofficial list. I'm so happy. That was like one of the biggest things because like when I was building the spreadsheet,
a big quality of life
update. I specifically went in game to test that one. I'm like, dang it, it's not in yet. In 323.2 or 324.2.
So related to the quantum travel experience, we got to see them flying the Gladius after they left that. They got in it was during the flight demo, and Yogi and was talking all about it, and so they got into combat, and then they quantumed over to a planet, and they demonstrated the new quantum travel experience, and then quantum boosting. And to me, it's like, okay, they're doing that in the game, going from one location to another. In the pyro system, seamlessly, engaging in combat and all that. Like that's a very complete demonstration to me. And I was like, okay, that looks like it's going to be coming in, in the next year. Like it's a systemic system. And I feel like, okay, if they've got it working for the Gladius, it shouldn't be a huge difference. Quantum travel from ship to ship shouldn't be that different of an experience, and quantum boosting, shouldn't be that different of an experience. And to me, it's like like Naz said, it's the squadron things that are at an inflection point. I took that literally, and so this is the part of the show where it's like, CIG, you showed this off. You showed it off in pretty good context. Where is it? And so that's why we're showing this, is because, this is the critique side where it's like, okay, CIG is not where they want to be with this feature. For Squadron, yes, but not for the PU. And it's probably one of those things where this can wait because it works in game, and we'll get it in when we get a chance. But we've had all these moving parts, and they're not quite where they want to be in terms of firing on all cylinders with all these people moved back over from Squadron. They're still catching up, and they have a lot of, they have more work to integrate these things than they probably thought. So in a reply to there's a post on September 4th that Yogi replied to on the 6th. The quote, Alvator said, quantum boost, is that still a thing? Because it was showed off to lots of fanfare. We were told it was an important part of master modes, but it's been a minute now, and there's clearly been nothing new to say about it. So question mark. And Yogi says quantum boost is part of the quantum travel experience feature. It's not part of the master modes change. Yeah, so don't get salty about it, because they're two different things. They're literally two different deliverables on the progress tracker.
Master modes is only the function of switching between SCM and nav mode. Everything to do with the characteristics of nav mode and SCM are a different feature.
Yogi goes
so
on.
Tired of people saying, I don't like the handling, master mode sucks. It's not master modes. It's the flight control tuning that they've done. Oh, we've had master modes in the game in some form since freaking 3.0.
We just showed it at last CitizenCon to give you an idea of what the flow looks like. Well, you guys did a really good job of that. So good that everybody really expected it. Yeah. It is fully enabled in Squadron 42, which makes sense because that's, they demonstrated it. The fact that they were able to demonstrate it in a PU pyro environment while it's only enabled in Squadron is pretty impressive, but it's not ready for the PU yet. So And this is, but they are doing work on it. Oddly enough, I can't find mentions of it when I search for quantum in the monthly reports, but it might be buried under something else. But the quantum travel experience has had a lot of work over the years, obviously, by different teams that are now folded back into the core gameplay pillar. After their recent reorganization, the core gameplay pillar picked that work back up at the end of April, but it's scheduled all the way out through into 2025, which means that work is definitely going to continue into 2025. It doesn't stop here. So this is a thing. The quantum travel experience is not going to come in 2024. I do not see it coming in 2024, even though they say a feature can release here, and this is them following up on it because it goes out this far. I think it's going to need a lot more work, but I do expect this for 2025. I think we're going to get a culmination of all these things that change the experience of Star Citizen in 2025, especially in the first half with a couple of things. So that's quantum travel. The next one is control surfaces, because this is a big deal for me because I don't do a lot of flying in space. Flying in space for me is just going from one place to another to get and fly around the planet or the moon. I like flying in atmosphere with my ships and going down to planets and moons and doing stuff. I don't do space-based bounties. I'll probably do more salvaging and space-based mining in the future, but that's not my shtick right now. So, Yogi replied to another post. Can we get an update on master modes in atmospheric flight? And so I'm not going to read all this, but this post was on July 22nd, so it's over 2 months old. So Yogi says what you call master modes in atmospheric flight is actually just the control surface tech. It doesn't like Naz said, it has nothing to do with master modes. There's flight tuning involved, but there is technology that has to go along with this, and that's the control surfaces. The control surface tech we showed during CitizenCon. If you watch our demonstration on flight, you'll get a rough idea of what we're aiming for. It was a good demo. It was a tech demo showing what they're aiming for. The plans haven't changed. However, I don't have any news on it yet. There has been some work going on, but it is definitely not ready for the PU yet. So that's another one of those things where the way they demoed it looked good. And it looked like it was farther along than it is, but it was this is control surface tech that was being demonstrated. And it was demonstrated with the Gladius because it's where they need it for the Gladius and probably a few other craft that you fly in Squadron, that they're able to demonstrate it in the a PU environment with ships that it's built for in Squadron. But that tech has a long way to go before it's ready for all the other ships that are in the PU. Gravity wells. Let's be real. Flying for you is more accurately described as plummeting. Falling with style. Get it right. And then Yogi says we're not moving away from the control surfaces. The 324 Atmo tuning is still using the legacy system. If you find it too forgiving, then maybe put that in the feedback section. So
I feel like that was a dig.
Yeah. But that's one of those things where this is a gotcha. And I'm kind of bitter about it because, I got. Like, this was a tech demo that I got fooled on. Like, I thought that this was a full-on demonstration and this was, going to be getting ported over, and, here Yogi is saying is like, no, we did a tech demo of what we're aiming for, but it's got a ways to go. It's ready for Squadron again, but not ready for the PU. But so shield your eyes because bright white. The August 16th and August 23rd weekly newsletters showed what looked like flaps on what is assumed to be the freelancer control surfaces. And Yogi said there has been some work going on, but it is definitely not ready for the PU yet. So they're working on it. It's just not ready for the PU. We don't know when. And part of the problem with that when is this deliverable hasn't been added to the core gameplay team like the other deliverables from the vehicle feature team have. But you can see this work on aerodynamic control surfaces. Here it is, vehicle feature team, one of the teams that was assigned to squadron, working on it right up into the middle of Q2, only a few months before CitizenCon up here. So there's more work going on for it, but we aren't able to track that just yet via the progress tracker or otherwise. It's aileron. You're close enough. You're good enough for not government work. I don't know. Naz, what'd you think about the control surface demo? Did you think the same thing I did? Or were you like, no, dummy?
I did think both the quantum travel system and like the new quantum travel system and the atmospheric controls were a lot closer than they apparently are. So yeah, I'm also bummed that they are really not. But apparently, like according to keeping up with Yogi's posts, there is a lot of stuff that he doesn't have time for, like his team doesn't have time for. I don't know why that is, but there's a lot. He has stated at least once, other than the post you showed, about not being able to get as much work done as he would have liked to on the vehicles since CitizenCon.
Yep.
So something else, whether it be size of team or needs of the game, which is probably more likely, distracting the vehicle team from master modes, tweaking that. But like also he wanted master modes to go faster. He wanted not speeds, but like the development of it. And he wanted to be able to iterate on it faster. And also like they've been developing the 4.0 branch. The 4.0 branch was, supposed to be out by now. So yeah. We'll have to see where exactly those two things come along. I definitely think that. Well, I was gonna say I definitely think by the time Squadron releases that we'll have both those things in game, but I don't know because the development of those features into Star Citizen has no relation to the development of Squadron 42. Because once those features are done for Squadron 42, it is up to resources, a big ethereal word, to free up to be able to have the manpower to then integrate it into Star Citizen, which is its own timetable. And in the interim of it being done for Squadron, aka now, and it being developed for Star Citizen, we could see Squadron release, which is a wild concept.
I think it's they aren't able to work on as many things in parallel as they want, and so they're focusing on master modes and resource management and engineering, and then they're going to circle back around, or they aren't pushing as hard on these other things because these are the things that will come next. 4.1, 4.2. They come next year.
Not going to go on the big rant that I did on my stream. Making the team bigger will not help.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
There's only so many people that you can hire to build a house. Eventually, even if you have one person for each piece of wood in the frame, the roofers can't start their job until the framing's done. They can't put up the walls yet until the frame is done. You can't have more people than you can, one, manage, two, you can only have up to as many people as can work in parallel on the same task.
Yeah. Well, and like these things they're not like prerequisite or even codependent, but by releasing them all at the same time would really make balancing and making these things work and like, imagine if the quantum travel experience and control surfaces came out across 323 and 40.
I
How much
forgot about that analogy. Thank you, Northern
that
Tinker.
would fuck everything up, on top of we also have engineering and master modes. Like that's too much change for the game at one time, and for the devs to be able to manage the balancing and the bug fixing and all that. Can you? Oh my god, it would be an absolute nightmare.
And
Yeah.
if you go back and watch, it was a year or two ago now. I think it was last year actually. The graphics programmer that talked about Vulkan, like he specifically is a small team lead because he wants a small team, because having his team that small, one, means that his job work is, not a headache, but also he gets to do the fun part of his job, and that's coding. So he gets to be part of the team as well as managing the team. I imagine a lot of devs, like, wow, I don't even need to say that, but like all the team leads in CIG only take what they need to work on or what they want. Their teams are not, well, I know you just became a manager yesterday. Here's 50 people you have to now manage. That ain't it. Like, that's not what happens. Uh, if they don't want big teams, or they don't need big teams, or they can't manage big teams, or they're not uh, don't have enough skill to manage big teams, they don't manage big teams. They keep it small and they just work through the stuff.
Keep
Chad
it
McKinney's team
manageable.
is a yeah, yeah. Uh, Chad McKinney's team is a small team that interfaces with a lot of the other teams.
Yep.
So even though his team is small, they have their workforce and they do what they do. And just throwing more devs at them won't make it any better. The vehicle team is one of the, or not vehicle team, but the vehicle art teams are one of the few teams where just throwing more people at them would actually get stuff done faster. Tech and features is not one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Tech and features, the way things work under the hood. In terms of making art assets, and that's like, art assets is where a lot of the making the universe bigger will go faster, by hiring a lot of artists who can make a lot of art assets to make locations, make interactables.
Yeah, I imagine CIG will become one of those companies, um, any minute now, that hires a ton of kids out of university and out of college. Like, you have zero actual world experience, go do this art for X amount of months, and then you can find a job in the industry and go. Or you can
Yeah,
stay.
make props.
I imagine they will churn through. Yeah, I imagine they will churn through artists, because art at the end of the day is a relatively wide pool of people. Just go on ArtStation. Like, look at how many people work on Star Wars, Star Citizen, and Star Atlas all at the same time. Not as in-house devs, but like concept artists and vehicle designers and all that. So they have plenty of room to just balloon their art devs to just earn art out. How they make that art actually function, not so much.
Yeah. Hey, the prisoner, how's it going? So the last thing, and this one is something to be optimistic about, and something I'm really excited about, and I'll give this ties back into something we were talking about earlier. Is radar and scanning, and you'll see right here we have FPS radar and scanning pulled up. Well, so they demoed that a whole lot. In the UI demo when they were doing all the star map stuff. They demoed the radar, FPS radar and scanning. But they also, during the flight part, they did a ping, and they showed the flight radar and flights. If you look down, you saw the new flight radar on the HUD, and then you also had saw the they did scanning as well, showing things. And so that's right here on the progress tracker. And so there's been a lot of work on both of those features, and these are the sprints for the core gameplay team. There are other sprints from legacy teams, vehicle radar and scanning. There's also a legacy deliverable as well. But look at where both of these sprints end right now. So, initially, these were probably features that were not targeting a 4.0 release because they were targeting 4.0 in here. And now 4.0 is targeting probably here-ish, towards the end of Q4. I think that there is potentially a good chance. Now, obviously, don't use project tracker, the progress tracker to try and predict when something will be released. Aha! But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
So these two features, what most people don't realize is this is one system. One system to rule them all, one system to in the dark despite them. The scanning and radar system for FPS and vehicles is the same tech, but they have to make it work on, emanating from, both the scan, the radar, the ping part. It has to be able to come from a character as well as come from a vehicle, but you also have to have signatures that come from characters that can be detected as well as coming from vehicles, and they both have to cross-mogenate. You have to be able to detect vehicles by pinging and using your FPS radar, and the signatures that the vehicles put out, which is anything with a resource network. But which also means you'll be able to ping for things that are resource network related in locations, buildings and stuff. But then you also be able to when you're using your radar and scanning on a vehicle, whether that's a ground vehicle, because some of those will have radars and stuff, but also ships, you also have to be able to detect the emissions and things that come off of characters. And I say characters, I don't mean like players, characters, because characters not only means your player character, but anything that uses a character model like the Atlas. The Atlas is not a vehicle. Yeah. Copians, yeah. Animals, creatures. You'll be able to detect those. They've talked about that in the monthly reports. So, very good point. So, when I say, but wait, there's more, this is the May monthly report, and this is the core gameplay section. And so the other thing I forgot to mention is there has been extensive mentions regarding radar and scanning, and they just say radar and scanning, but then they talk about some things that are related more to vehicles versus characters and such in every monthly report since February. They have been busy. Huge sections of the core gameplay pillar have been all about radar and scanning. They're pushing hard on this. So, and when you talk about staggered development, when they have this many people working on something, it means that this is the feature that they are working on. This is what they are targeting for 6 months out. And they got started in February. So probably targeting the end of the year. So in May, they said finally for radar and scanning, the team activated FPS radar and other experimental radar features across Arena Commander. These systems will be reassessed closer to the release of Alpha 4.0 for a potential preview via Arena Commander. Well, when they preview something in Arena Commander, when does it come out? The patch after it was previewed. Master Modes was previewed in 3.2.2, right? And released in 3.2.3. Engineering was previewed in 3.2.3. Is now coming out in 4.0 because 3.2.4 is just the same branch.
Not supposed to exist.
Yeah. And so they're looking to preview radar and scanning in Arena Commander in 4.0 in May, which means that they were probably targeting a 4.1 release, because in May they were still targeting Q3 for 4.0, which means they're targeting Q4 for 4.1, which means they're targeting radar and scanning for 4.1 to be released in 2024 to add to our list of things, to change the Star Citizen experience. This is a huge one. I mean, when we all saw that in the Star Map demo and everything and doing all that, a lot of people are like, oh, wall hacks, but a lot of us were like, exploring caves. you know, um,
Trying to
doing
find what boxes
anything.
in the environment's actually interactable.
Yeah, all sorts of
Because
things.
this is the same feature from 2 years ago, CitizenCon, where they were in the Asiato station and they pinged the
Yep. Yeah.
environment and it showed everything that was interactable. That's
Yeah.
the system.
Finding your, if you're doing, you're infiltrating, you're like sneaking around, um, right now we get all these AR markers that hint us, to follow the yellow brick road essentially. Well, if you those won't always be there. You'll have to ping to find where to go to look for the things that you're looking for in order to complete, whatever job for it. And like this for so the reason I'm super excited about this is I like caves, and I've wanted to do caves for so long, but caves were so broken with traversal issues for so long. Well, we got new traversal in, and the mantling and stuff, and better crawling and all that, so that works far better. And then we got the new caves that are better designed, so you don't get stuck. The sandy caves. Now we're getting acid caves and the revamped rock caves, and now we in 3.4.2 we have the maps for the caves, and hopefully looking like maybe by the end of the year, or maybe if not the end of the year, very early in 2025, we're going to be able to scan and use our radar in those caves, so that way it isn't just
Have the
here's an
terraform
AR
action
marker. Yeah, go search here or something like that. No, you scan and okay, well, it pulls up the hand minables, or loot crates or anything with a signature or something like that. Massively changes the game for when you're doing FPS stuff, but also ships. We have the
Uh,
legacy, ping feature and legacy scanning and all that.
we already have acid biomes on planets. Hurston has the acid biome.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ariel is also acid.
Yeah, one of
It's one of
its
the ones.
moons. Yeah.
Um, Also, Aether just said all the wall hack people just showed how much their imagination has been stunted by too much COD. That is, I think, a really big problem with, I think, just in general, mostly the PvP scene in Star Citizen. But I imagine it would also affect other places because we've been in alpha so long, because the status quo has been the status quo for so long. I think people, and especially the PvP crowd, has gotten a wrong expectation of what CIG is building, to where they're actually starting to achieve their goal, and people are freaking out. And it is more arcadey than they thought it was going to supposed to be. Yes, I
It's
said that
like
correctly.
it has arcade features, but there's so much nuance to it that it makes it so sim, because there's so much depth and there's so many ways that it's like, oh, wall hacks. It's like, no, you're going to be able to counter that. And you'll have to have the right. You have to have the tool. You're not going to get given that. Just like the you know
Dynamic
the
crosshair.
projected, the dynamic crosshair. If you're not wearing the right helmet, you're not going to have it. Like, all these things are going to be based off of your choices, and they're going to have uh, uh, consequences to that. So
Yeah.
the last note is, this is the August monthly report, and take that in context of what we just read about in May. So this is 3 months later, and they're talking about how they're going to they want to preview it in Arena Commander during 4.0, and they'll reassess as they get closer to 4.0's release. Well, in August, July's work on radar and scanning continued throughout August, with the team reviewing it in Arena Commander to assess the impact on the player experience and tune values to achieve the desired effect. They're getting it ready for a technical preview. So this is my prediction: in 3.24.2, we're going to have tech preview of radar and scanning. Now, whether it's FPS or vehicle or both, I don't know. I definitely think FPS. I'm hoping both. But if you go back and read through the monthly reports, they talk about the two like simultaneously, and we can see how the work lines up. But I think that because this was originally something that they were planning on testing during the 4.0 cycle in Arena Commander, Well, now the 4.0 cycle is, essentially going to be 3.2, 4.2, and then 4.0 is going to be later. I think that this could be a 4.0 feature at the end of the year. They moved up MFDs and HUD, and they're adding um, radar and scanning from what would have been 4.1 to now 4.0 at the end of the year. That's just my thought. I'm really hopeful for it because I'm already looking forward to having a map of the dang caves, but being able to go into a cave and scan when I'm searching for a dead body or I'm going mining and looting. Because the other thing is that the new caves have loot in them.
Very nice.
Yeah, not only are there minables, and there's missions and stuff, and they have the maps, but they have loot in them. So the loot goblin is really excited for all this to come together and to be able to take these missions
how
and go
fast
exploring.
are you going to need to buy a bigger ship just for the loot?
I just buy more crates. I fill up a crate and I put it into storage, and then I go get another one and start all over again.
So you're very much location based, not ship based.
Yeah, not keeping it all on my ship.
A lot of other Zero to Hero kind of playthroughs are ship based. Like I forget who did the living off the Corsair series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and like eventually I'll keep more, but right now I've got a cutter, and so I'll work my way up to a larger ship, and eventually, and then keep more. Yeah, but for right now, it's just going to be keeping more and more loot, and because some of it is I loot and then I take it back to my personal hangar, and then I store the things I want to keep, which isn't very much, bits and pieces of armor and weapons and stuff, but not a lot. But then a lot of stuff I sell. I'm selling armor. I sold armor and weapons. I sold a ton of mineable, hand minables. I made like 20 something thousand UEC the other night just by doing hand minables on a couple of missions. So, work my way up from there. But eventually, like, I'll keep more on the ship based off of I want this gear with me versus leaving it at the hangar. But this is like, if quantum travel and control services are probably going to be coming in 2025 because they're following on the heels of resource management, engineering, and master modes. And FPS and vehicle radar radar and scanning are Q4 this year, Q1 next year. We'll have completed that goal of changing the Star Citizen experience, in the not too distant future. We've gotten a whole lot of it already. We're going to get a lot more of it through the rest of this year and even more into next year. And I'm super happy about that. Like, we've had so much legacy stuff for so long, and it feels so much better already, and the rest is like literally within our reach. Oh, Blizzrad, I'm gonna go spelunking in your holes in the ground.
I know you meant to phrase it that way, but that's terrible. Terrible.
Blizzrad goes out of his way to make me uncomfortable and fails miserably because he forgets who I am.
Yeah, okay.
That's where the 0311 part comes from. Remember, I am an old infantry marine. I am a dirty, terrible person at heart. I've just become more civilized, but at my core,
I'm civilized, still, but not civilized.
Yeah, at my core, I'm still a murder hobo who wears green. Like, that's it. Like, I'm strangely aroused. But yeah, that's it for FPS vehicle radar and scanning. I think that's all we have for that Spectrum Pulse. Nazeris, do you have any closing comments on that?
Nope. It's meet back here in about 6 months after, 3 months ish after CitizenCon, after the holiday madness. I now work at Walmart, so
let's see. We are.
I have so much pain.
We're 3 weeks away. less than that because it's the end of Saturday now.
Yeah.
But yeah, 3
I mean,
weeks,
it's an hour into
guys.
Sunday for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
both excitedly looking forward to being employed again and having money to like spend on things, but also like I got employed at Walmart right before the holiday season.
oh boy, bless your heart.
Fortunately, though, they did warn me that they do have measures in place to mitigate said things, especially Black Friday. They're not really doing a Black Friday thing. There'll be these little like I forget what they called them, but these like sale bunches. And like it'll only be like a few items per week, and they'll just do a couple items a week and spread out that kind of rush to get that one thing over the course of a month or two.
Oh no, we're not going to not have Pathfinders for the next 6 months. That's not what we're talking about.
No. I was just saying, but the
Yeah.
CitizenCon review stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
we still got like monthly report to go through.
Yeah,
And I
we
imagine we'll
may
do
have a
a
monthly report next Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday, but it's the second. I wonder if they'll wait and do it on the 9th. I don't know. We'll definitely do a monthly report episode for the September monthly reports, and we have to do a CitizenCon
Yeah, I
predictions
imagine.
episode.
Yeah, they might wait till the 9th. Or they'll just say, "Hey, we aren't doing it till after CitizenCon because it would be too thin without the stuff that we're working on for CitizenCon."
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, we
knows?
won't have a podcast next Saturday because it's a drill weekend. But then wife is having girls' night out next Saturday the 5th, so I will have my hands full. I might stream once the kids are off to bed, but won't be able to do a podcast. But yeah, we'll because that's the other thing is we need to check on the monthly reports to follow up on like things like on radar and scanning, and development for other things to see, get a better idea. But yeah, we definitely need to talk about our CitizenCon predictions because that's the other thing is like there are some things where it's like, yeah, we're gonna get an update on base building and crafting because those are on the progress tracker. They're working hard on them. I think, we're probably going to get, we're definitely going to see a lot of Squadron. I think we're going to get an update on the Planet Tech. But other than that, like everything else, it's like, I'm not sure what to expect beyond that. I mean, Squadron's going to take up a lot of it, but, what else is there that could be ready? So.
Yep. Yeah, they don't want to just like redo everything. It's like, what have they been working on this year? Everything they talked about last year. So they don't have all the stuff they talked about last year to talk about.
Yeah.
We
might get an update on those things that we just talked about.
On crafting and base building. They probably have some sort of update.
The road to 1.0. That's going to be a
Soul
big
Singer,
presentation.
yeah, that's another thing they had to do.
The TOTA can, yeah.
So what I assume Soul Singer is their system they talked about in the monthly reports for a system for chatter to be dynamically generated for NPCs, specifically around landing zones, where they will dynamically talk about experiences in their made-up lives and events going on around them.
Yeah,
that's what I think Soul Singer is.
Yeah, it's like an AI thing that generates the conversations based off the events in game and stuff, and
like if Prime is on a high rise, you'll have more of these chatters like, I'm kind of worried about going home at night, or did you hear somebody got picked up, or somebody was caught in this kind of thing. Or if like Invictus is going on, hey, have you been to the show floor today? And like just these, because like the amount of these Chris GPT,
Quantum GPT,
honestly,
Atlas GPT,
I wouldn't be upset. I would absolutely not be upset, because that kind of stuff I think would benefit games a lot. And there have been some more tech demo-ish games based on ChatGPT that have been made. The one that I know of most, because it was a released game, it was very indie, but it was a released game. You played as a vampire trying to convince house owners to let you in or to invite you into their house. So you'd go door to door and have a dynamic conversation trying to get the NPC to invite you into their house. And I've like watched an entire setup video on how to link voice chat into chat GPT into a voice synthesizer to make a infinitely expandable conversation. Basically, you talk to the NPC, there's a massive delay, but it then talks back, and there's not set lines. For a game as big as Star Citizen, with hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of NPCs
Tony
everywhere,
GPZ.
I like that. And with them saying, like, at one point, I'm pretty sure this is not the plan currently, but at one point, the thought was thrown out of being able to walk up to any NPC and for it to, one, have something relevant, two, maybe even find a hidden quest line, or at least hidden mission. I think stuff like that kind of GPT stuff, or a large language model specifically, not GPT. There's a bunch of them out there by now. Like it, I wouldn't be upset, and it'd be good. It'd be really good, and I trust CIG with that kind of stuff. I would absolutely trust them with that kind of stuff. And I would absolutely trust them to because an LLM is not like it doesn't rip data from something nefarious. Does it watch Twitter posts and is it learnt on people talking? Yes, but also if the bigger thing with LLMs that people have a problem with, kind of like art generation, is when they have voices. Their voices are synthesized. What's the from people who weren't asked, basically. But LLM specifically, I don't think anyone has a moral problem with. I would absolutely love that. Just train it on global chat. Yeah. Well, I mean, they trained one of them on Reddit.
Yeah, he said don't train it on global chat. But...
Or don't. Okay, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Reddit same way.
It'd be a whole bunch of silly questions that could be answered by looking in the options. No, that's a really interesting theory. I'm here for it. Any closing comments before we wrap up the show? And we need a suggestion for someone to raid.
I don't really have any closing comments. I have been streaming currently. The schedule I have, which is going to change rapidly now. I stream 1 to 5 on Monday and Tuesday and Friday, and again at 8 to 12 on each of those days. So 1 to 5 and 8 to 12 on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. Both the early streams or noon streams are Space Engineers on Monday and Tuesday. And then Tuesday's evening stream, 8 to 12, is working on the Argo Bulk.
Yes.
Which has a completely new design and is actually I'm going more broad with it instead of trying to build it out at some sort of concept ready mesh. Actually, I have it very, very vague. Look for it. And it's also a different idea of the design. Because the original idea I had was basically a large empty room where you just kind of stick cargo around. Couple problems with that is seeing too many boxes at once. And CIG would never, ever let that kind of thing into the game because it gives too much uninhibited gameplay, which is a weird way of saying that, and it probably rubs some people the wrong way. But it's not carrier. It's not supposed to be a carrier. It shouldn't work like a carrier. That is for something else that has its own bonuses and negatives. So I'm sending you over. There it is. Copy.
Shiny Hobo is still trying to figure. There's not a whole lot to do on the progress tracker right now until we get more updates.
Yeah.
They have to add more teams, and they have to add a lot more deliverables, and there's going to be more changes. Oh, hey, thanks for the late sub, Raptor on a Badger. Really appreciate the support. Thanks for coming and hanging out this evening. Yeah, we do touch base with Shiny now and then, but there's really not much to cover with the Shiny tracker until CIG finishes getting the progress tracker in, because they got a lot of it in, but there's more features that they have to do and more teams and stuff they have to add, and so there haven't been any updates to the progress tracker since that big update.
Yep.
That's
I don't know if you want to show these stuff on the screen though.
Oh, whoops.
Sorry, I'm making you do stuff. I'm sorry.
So bulky.
Yeah, it's missing a lot of its like all shape, but I'm pretty sure this is where like stuff should be, but not 100% at all.
Oh, look, it's me when I go to Costco to buy stuff for the kids. Let's go ahead and raid Fairasalt, because I know Fairasalt is a decent person, and looks like he's sipping tea and zooming in space. All right, starting the raid. Send Fairasalt.
Bye.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We will keep you updated on the next episode, and I will be streaming again tomorrow with more 0 to Hero. Have a good night.
I'll be at work. Bye.